Well, I'm not sure if it'll land as well without Mark Dykton, but Andy Sweeney, I felt this way driving in. I'm like, you know what? These handful of days in between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah. What do you do with them?
They're just kind of worthless.
What are they? Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, oh, boy, there's the alarm. And, I mean, I had yesterday off. I should be refreshed. I should be ready to go. But you know what?
What?
It kind of was like watching the 3 hours of football that graced our airwaves last night.
Right now you're thinking, why didn't I just take Friday off too? That's what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking.
6-3 last night for Mark Dykton's Bears. I'm like, there's part of me that wants like Mark to have like, hey, saw this at the start of the year, thought, oh man, Thursday night football, we could be playing for a playoff spot.
Seattle's always like 7, 8, 9 wins.
Sure, it could be a wild card battle.
They're good enough to watch.
I'm gonna take that Friday off. Here we go.
Sure,
everything is just looking gravy. And we get the lowest scoring NFL game all season long. Thomas Brown, Matt Eberflus, it doesn't matter. The Bears still don't know how to manage the clock. So that was your Thursday night viewing. Obviously, speaking of finishing, we saw some issues over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse in that for the Pacers. And here we are on this Friday morning back on Anthony Richardson injury watch.
I know we haven't done this for the better part of a month and a half. It's been nice to be able to play these football games, win or loss, without talking about Anthony Richardson. So we have that. You're exactly right with the Pacers. We'll dive into that. And then, just going back to the Thursday night game, I am delighted. It's almost as if the NFL is playing a joke on Al Michaels. Poor Al Michaels. He hates the only thing he likes about doing the Thursday night football games, I would imagine, is the paycheck that he gets. I would imagine a pretty lofty paycheck that he gets to do those games. Another stinker last night. How was Christmas for the Bowen family, though?
It was great.
Was it good? Everything good?
Lots of Lion King. Lots of Candyland games here in the last 24 hours.
You told me Lion King was a big winner. It was. It's never went away. I want to say it's back, but it really never left, I guess, for the last 30 years.
And then the regrettable gift of,
oh, boy.
Why did Rosie get a microphone? And how quickly can we just make that thing disappear?
Is it like a karaoke or like a little speaker?
Like, knockoff karaoke machine.
Well, she wants to be like Daddy. Is that it? Or she wanted to be a Taylor Swift? Or what? Is that who she's trying to be?
I was going to say, I don't think she's ever gotten in the car in the morning and been like, Mommy, let's turn on Daddy on the radio.
Does she want to break down Shea Gilgeous-Alexander?
Really would love to hear more about Opie Toppin's ankle and, should Anthony Richardson play in inclement weather coming up on Sunday. But
right, of course.
Great Christmas, though, in all seriousness. How was it for Little Gas and Company?
Everything was good. It's funny. Yesterday, our buddy Rob Kendall over on IBC, he tweeted out something to the effect of, I think he's got a kid who's a little bit older than Mason. Mason's, 16 months or so, 15, 16 months. And he's like, you don't have to get him a lot of gifts, but the temptation to get him a lot of gifts is there. And so, of course, he was spoiled. The grandparents spoiled him. I don't know where we're going to put all this stuff, quite frankly, but he's having a good time playing with all his stuff. We found out yesterday Corbin drank 12 beers and was slightly hungover for yesterday's show. He's looking and feeling much better today, though. He looks the color in his face looks much better than it did 24 hours ago.
Corbin, first off, zero judgment here. And secondly, that hat is looking excellent.
I know
it's
hat.
not showing up on the YouTube stream, but
nice
Corbin
hat.
Lingenfelter in for Mark Dykton here on this Friday morning. That is Coors Banquet.
It is?
Looking pristine. Is that a Christmas gift, Corbin?
Yes, it was.
Gosh, that looks awesome. I got for my great brother-in-law, Ross, he got me like a Notre Dame bucket hat. It kind of looks like something Kirby Smart would wear at
practice?
two-a-days in mid-August.
Sure. Twirling his whistle on his finger as he's yelling at five-star athletes.
I thought about rocking that, but I think it's a tad obnoxious for December 27th.
Well, IU fans are still a little bit butthurt,
But a great sun hat,
Good.
Something here.
Sure, you can mow the lawn. You
Yes.
go out somewhere. You pop that baby on. You're a big fan of the corduroy hat. Don't you have a couple of those?
And that's what Corbin.
And that's
that
what
is
Corbin
corduroy,
has,
right?
Oh, it
That
is.
is
Yeah.
corduroy.
Yeah,
It's exactly what it is.
Pacers corduroy hat. Before we get to the Pacers, by the way, again, I know today can be a bit of a lull for a lot of people work-wise. How about we do a little Santa action a couple days later?
Okay.
You want to check out the Butler Bulldogs inside of Hinkle Fieldhouse New Year's Day. That's a little bit later in the day, correct? I probably should have looked up the tip time. It's Butler and Villanova. We'll do a 4-pack of tickets. Corbin, if you want to take fast fingers on that. 317-239-1070.
It's at 6:30.
Okay,
so by then you're going to be recovered or you're going to be going to bed. It's kind of one or the other.
And Notre Dame, Georgia doesn't start till 8:45.
Oh, so you're home. You got 15 minutes to spare. Not a problem.
Look at that. We'll take fast fingers to go to Hinkle here coming up on January 1st. Again, last night over at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Andy, I thought for about 40-ish minutes, that was a very, very impressive Pacers effort. I mean, the Thunder are great. I mean, they are arguably the best team in the league. And you hate to boil it down to one thing, but how do you not boil it down to one $200 million guy versus the other? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 45 points last night, made every winning play needed for the Thunder. And again, they were down, and they had a flurry to end the game. And Tyrese Halliburton, for the 7th time this season, he's in single digits.
Yeah, I know after the game that Carlisle talked about it, and it was Lou Dort who was on him. But far too often this season, teams have been able to say, we're going to take Tyrese away, and then they actually do it. And then I think when they get into these stretches, Halliburton understands, okay, I'm being guarded differently, so I'm not going to have the ball in my hands as much, which is fine. And so Andrew Nembhard has a big game, and everyone praises Nembhard, but when Nembhard is having a big game, it kind of gets eliminated when Tyrese throws up a nothing game. And that's what he had last night. And I don't know what this season is for Halliburton. I don't know if eventually, and we still have a lot of time to go here, okay? We're not halfway done with the season, but I don't know, KB. Is it going to be a down year for him? Is it going to be a good year but not a great year? I'm trying to figure out, because last year there was greatness, and this year there have been patches of greatness, but Gilgeous-Alexander was great, and at some point I know that Halliburton, I know he's got Lou Dort on him, but you got to be better than the defense. And other superstar players, when the Pacers try to lock them down, are better than the defense, and you need that from your $200 million man. You led by 4 with 3.5 minutes to go. They go on a 17-7 run. You mentioned SGA makes all the plays, and it's too bad because this team was giving us a bit of feel good, and you're on a back-to-back. You go to Boston, you play Boston a couple times. The schedule gets no easier. So it would have been really nice to capture this win against what I think is the best or second-best team in the NBA.
Lou Dort, hell of a defender, cannot excuse the other 6 times this season. Halliburton's been in single digits, and it's not like, he was on minutes restrictions for those or, exited earlier.
I mean, he played 35 minutes last night.
Due to injury, anything like that. So, he had been playing a lot better, certainly. I don't want to act like, what we saw kind of to start the season, even into November, was something that we've seen here in the month of December. But I thought you laid it out pretty well there, Andy. You hate to say squandered opportunity, but I kind of felt that way at the Final Horn last night, because now you go to Boston. They are reeling. It's their first 2 games. And when I say reeling, you have to put in Boston Celtic terms.
You sounded to the Raiders or the Giants on Sunday. They're reeling, man.
They've lost 3 of 4 and 4 of 7, and they've lost 2 straight.
They lost to the Sixers, even though Embiid tried to injure himself before the game on Christmas.
So that's why you're catching them. Certainly, I mean, you're an 11.5-point underdog for tonight here, the second night of a back-to-back, and you have to get a little bit more from him. Again, 4 points is just beyond inexcusable. And, oftentimes what the Pacers do is they like to leave him into that second unit.
Sure.
And that's when you've got to carry more of that load. When you're with the starters, and I thought guys like Nembhard started well. Certainly Siakam hit a couple threes there early. I thought Mathurin had a good first half. Other guys can kind of handle that brunt in the starting lineup. The second unit, though, it's a lot of guys that are looking to you. And, especially with Toppin, he was out there during the first half for a little bit of stretch. Obviously didn't play in the second half. It doesn't sound like he'll give it a go. That ankle injury actually looked pretty bad. I was surprised that he came back in the game. Guys were slipping everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on with that.
I don't know. Was it the new court, or that was one of the alternate courts? I don't. Both teams. I mean, Dort went down early in that game. So, yeah, just a bit of a squandered opportunity for the Pacers, certainly. Tonight, 7:30 tip, as Andy said. They'll play 2 of 3 in Boston. They'll be back at home with the New Year's matinee. That is the Milwaukee Bucks, 3 o'clock coming up on Tuesday. And as we sit here on this Friday morning, I don't know if Anthony Richardson's starting on Sunday or not.
Well, I know Stephen Holder reported yesterday that they're optimistic.
But we have had
we've had this before.
And we've had weird Fridays with Richardson.
I know.
Go back to week 6, Andy. He practiced full that week. And then all of a sudden they get to Friday and they limit.
Right. And then on Saturday he's not right. Yeah.
And so I got a couple questions, I guess, to throw out there to you on this Friday and potentially Shane Steichen later today. First off, should or will Saturday matter? And I say Saturday. The Colts could be eliminated from the playoffs on Saturday.
Yes, they could. We went over that yesterday. Again, you're watching the Broncos, you're watching the Chargers.
Will that impact your decision with Anthony Richardson at all for Sunday? Like, if all of a sudden you're eliminated, do you then not play him in the game? I get that you would find out if you're eliminated at like 8 p.m. tomorrow night.
Right.
That's kind of late. You got to probably make a decision on that, but I would throw that out there. Secondly, the weather looks horrific for Saturday. Just like rain and rain and rain.
Welcome to MetLife Stadium,
Part
fellas.
of me thinks that's great for Richardson. Just pound it with him and Taylor.
Yeah, just run the football 52 times.
You know your Giants are very banged up in the front seven.
They're the worst team in the NFL, or second to worst against the run in the entire league. Yep.
So, I'm a little torn on that. And then just in general, we have yet to have Richardson play an NFL game with a limited week of practice. No matter what happens today, he will have had a limited week of practice. There are a couple different injuries, back and foot. I tend to think this. It's a do-or-die game. I mean, you know me. I've clamored for Richardson reps endlessly.
Yeah.
But I also sit here with the bird on the other shoulder saying, I really only care about him having a healthy offseason. And if all of a sudden, whatever, you risk something, and he injures his foot even more, and he's out for the first 2 months of the offseason or something
and we do this entire thing again.
Right. So that.
But the season's about him maturing, and he needs a game like this. I mean, this is against a bad team. He could go out and ball out. Short week of practice, having a little bit of injury, but it's against a bad team.
This is life in the NFL.
This is life in the NFL. Exactly.
I think I'm there, I guess. I know I sound wishy-washy. I think I'm there. Like, yes, he needs a reps period, even if he's a little bit limited. What other weather could be impacted? You might be playing for something, you might not be. I think I'm largely there, but I also didn't think I would sit here and say, wait a minute, this offseason, that's all that matters. Like, he's going to prove nothing in these final 2 weeks, really. It's not like his accuracy is going to greatly improve. I mean, playing in torrential downpour on Sunday, is that going to be the greatest evaluation marker for him?
That's going to be the ugliest game of the weekend. I just cannot imagine going to that game.
I'm just conflicted, I guess, to summarize it all with Anthony Richardson here on this Friday. Back foot has yet to practice. We'll see today around noon what happens.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point, and we'll dive into this at 7:35. You bring up an interesting point, KB, on the off-season. I had not thought of it that way because everything this year has been about AR getting reps. And if we're going to be consistent with that, that means, hell yeah, I want to see him on Sunday. And there is a part of me that's, okay, you're a little bit banged up. You're facing a bad team, but it's a road game. It's in the elements. I mean, this is another opportunity as a dome team, and he played in the SEC in the South. I mean, I don't know how many games he's played in the rain. I'm just asking that. I know Florida, there's obviously a lot of rain in Florida, but you'd have to go back to high school days, I would imagine. I can't think of a game, a short stint there in Gainesville that he played in rain, and then obviously the injuries and being a dome team and everything else here in Indianapolis. As for the elimination side of that, that's probably where I'm strong enough. I don't care about that. Okay. If they are officially eliminated on Saturday night, they have is it still a 17% chance to make the playoffs? I mean, they have been now for several weeks in the low teens or single-digit percentage chances of making the playoffs. So that doesn't move the needle. But the offseason stuff does. I just think you got to get in. If everything is about getting him reps, you get him reps, and you get him reps against what has consistently been one of the worst defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, and again, I think I'm there, but I will say
I understand the other side.
There's just a little bit of stuff I can't ignore.
I do.
And still, we've gotten to this point with weeks here with Richardson where it gets a little awkward late in the week. So we'll see how all of that plays out. For the Colts, the injury report, I would say, is rather straightforward outside of that. Quentin Nelson might be one to watch this with that ankle. He was limited yesterday. But, boy, your Giants. I mean, I mentioned the front seven injuries. Their best running back, their best wide receiver, I would say probably their best offensive lineman right now.
Yeah.
And their leading tackler all have not practiced this week.
No, there are guys.
That's Malik Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy, John Michael Schmitz, and Micah McFadden.
Yeah, I mean they're missing. They're going to be missing the better part of at least 3, if not 4, of the guys they had starting the season at offensive line. Malik Neighbors, I totally could see. Talk about shutting guys down. You saw CeeDee Lamb get shut down yesterday with the shoulder injury in Dallas. I totally could see him being shut down. Obviously, people know local kid Tyrone Tracy playing at Purdue and everything else. The Giants have guys on defense I had to legit look up last week against Atlanta. Guys that I did not know who they were. Deep practice squad players, guys that were picked up. So they are in total tankathon, and they should be, and that's what you're dealing with. So I just don't want to see Joe Flacco out there in the rain, brother. I mean, if you're a Colts fan and Joe Flacco's out there playing, what's the use?
Right. I probably side with you, but still, we've gotten to this point. And, I know it's been a couple months, but this is where Richardson, I think you look at it, and it's probably more wear and tear. I don't remember. I'm sure you guys did the exercise yesterday. I mean, I went back and watched the end of the game. He had that late, kind of end-around run where, he got the first down against Tennessee and, did the little point for the first down, looked fine there. I know he lowered his head on the goal line. That was kind of a play I went back and watched. But, again, is this just kind of if you look at the stats, he has ran the ball about as much as any quarterback in the NFL since he's come back in the lineup.
Right.
Is this just some of that natural wear and tear? He started and finished 5 straight games. It's actually 7 if you go back pre-benching. Is this just some of the natural, hey, welcome to life in the NFL? And we'll play some Richardson audio in a little bit. I know he wasn't asked specifically about his injuries earlier in the week, but he certainly was pretty honest about how he just feels sore-wise.
Sure.
At this point of his first real full NFL season.
Normal Football Friday for us. Our predictions coming up at 8:30. Reminder, top of the hour, Greg Rakestraw will join us, 9 o'clock hour, voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor. Coming up next, your morning check down. Pacers lose. What did the Colts say yesterday? Locker room open for guys like DeForest Buckner and Jonathan Taylor, plus your news and scores from overnight. Appreciate you waking up with us. It's a Football Friday right here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's a Newsy Friday here on the Wake Up Call. Thank you for spending it with us. A lot of Colts items to get to, but Andy Sweeney, I believe you'll start over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse from last night.
Yeah, the Pacers were looking for 6 straight, didn't get it. 121-14. That's your final. Oklahoma City, they come in. And boy, I tell you though, I heard this stat. It was only the 7th time in the fourth quarter that the Thunder have trailed this season. That's quite the stat. But they end up coming back and beating the Pacers by 6. I think story of the game, you look at it, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, career high, ties to career high, 45 points last night for the Thunder, and some good and bad from the Pacers. Andrew Nembhard had 23 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. The flip side, Tyrese Halliburton, 4 points, took just 6 shots in 35 minutes of play. Why was that the case? Nembhard and Halliburton. Here's Rick Carlisle postgame.
A lot of it has to do with the matchups. Coming into this game, it was the kind of game where we really knew that the best chance for us was to keep the game as random as possible, keep pace and movement in the game. And when you do that, it's hard to gauge exactly where the ball goes. And so, Tylee ended up with 4 points and 6 shots, but they committed Lou Dort to him. And Lou Dort's as good a defender as there is in the league right now. So, that had a lot to do with it as well.
Lou Dort's a great defender, but that is now the 7th time this season Tyrese Halliburton has been in single digits. You have to have more out of your $200 million guy. He has been much better here over the last month, but still needed more out of him. And a reminder, it is a back-to-back in Boston right now, 7:30 tonight. Pacers are an 11.5-point underdog to the defending champs. The Celtics have lost 2 in a row for the first time all season, 3 of 4 and 4 of 7. So probably not the time to be catching Boston, not only tonight, but also Sunday. Both those games out there. And it sounds like Obi Toppin, after that ankle injury last night, very iffy for this one. All right, it will be certainly a news item Friday for the Colts. Haven't had many of those in a while, but Anthony Richardson has yet to practice this week. Back and foot ailments. We'll play some Richardson audio upcoming. He did talk a little bit earlier in the week about just the general wear and tear on his body at this point in the season. Outside of that, the injury report, Andy, not too crazy. E.J. Speed is yet to practice this week. We saw him miss the previous game. Looks like Alec Pierce should be back in the lineup through concussion protocol. Quentin Nelson was limited yesterday with that ankle injury. We saw him tweak against the Titans. But the Colts, again, rather straightforward outside of Richardson. Your Giants, though, very, very banged up heading into Sunday.
I gotta be honest, I have no idea who's gonna play. I'm just praying.
Is Drew Lock a win for the Colts, or do they want to see Tommy DeVito or
Drew Lock is
Tim
terrible.
Boyle?
He's the bottom of the bottom. No, I mean he is played
it's probably
so
a stupid
bad.
question to be honest with you.
I mean he's good for 2 or 3 interceptions. So if I'm a defender, if I'm Kenny Moore, if I'm Blackman, if I'm any of these guys, I'm thinking I'm gonna get my hands on one at some point on Sunday. So we'll see what happens there. Last night, Thursday night football was a stinker. 6-3 was your final. No scoring in the second half, KB. I did not watch much of this game. I got to be honest with you. Did you? Tell me you didn't. Tell me you didn't.
I was focused a little bit more on Pacers Thunder. But I will say, a few times when I flipped over, I thought, Corbin, you said you had a dozen beers and were a little hungover the other day.
Yeah.
Mark Dykton had to be north of a dozen watching that last night, right?
Why would you even? I mean, yeah, Mark's one of those guys that turns it off and he and his wife go watch TV. I can see that happening. I'm saying Mark didn't see the fourth quarter.
Judging by his tweets last night.
Was he tweeting about it?
I thought he hung in there for a long time. It is the lowest scoring game in the NFL this season, 6-3. Seahawks win. Just a couple random items of note here. Shout out to Jaden Ivey. I don't know if you saw that highlight last night.
I did.
4-point play to win the game.
Dude, the Kings stink.
The Kings are not very good. Jaden Ivey's had a very good season here. 4-point play for him. They come back from 19 down to the Pistons. Indiana and Purdue. We'll get back in action on the hardwood coming up Sunday, the final non-conference game for each of those teams. Indiana's got Winthrop, Purdue's got Toledo. And yesterday, I guess right after you guys probably signed off, Jim Larinaga, 75 years old.
Middle of the season.
The University of Miami head coach. They are terrible this season.
They're 4-8.
He is retiring.
Yeah, I listen, I won't get on my high horse too much, but I saw like Fran Fraschilla yesterday, putting on for him. I mean, middle of the season, and he retired. He immediately went to I don't like NIL, and he's at Miami. It's like the place that invented NIL. He bought himself a Final Four 2 years ago.
Wasn't that why they got to the Final Four?
Like literally all the guys were Final Four NIL guys, but he doesn't like NIL, so he's going to retire in the middle of the season. I don't know what's better, middle of the season or before the season, like Tony Bennett at Virginia.
What was the dude with the insurance company that helped get all those Miami guys?
He got out.
What was his name?
Oh goodness,
Shapiro.
Nevin Shapiro. He got the
LC kid.
Well, he
was
also
the point guard, Nigel Pack.
Yeah, we got to take a break, but he got what do you call it when a president he got pardoned by Biden.
Did he really?
Yeah, he got Nevin Shapiro got pardoned by Biden.
They knocked IU out of the tournament in their run to the Final Four.
Yes, they did. He was doing NIL much before it became what it is the last couple years. Let's take a break. On the other side, I want to answer those questions. What do we think happens with Anthony Richardson on a Sunday? What do you want to happen with Anthony Richardson on Sunday if he doesn't practice? We'll talk about that in Greg Rakestraw at 8 o'clock. Appreciate you waking up with us. Wake up call right here. It's a Football Friday on the Fan.
For the second time this year, the Colts will be off to New York coming up tomorrow. Looks to be a rainy Sunday, which almost seems fitting. I don't know if I've ever seen a game at MetLife where the sun has been out. Colts and Giants, 1 o'clock on Sunday. We'll see who the starting quarterback is for the Colts. We'll touch on that here in just a second. Andy, I'm sure you guys hit on this yesterday, but I must say, watching Christmas football.
Okay.
And the Texans getting pummeled.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
on
we talked
Christmas.
about it. 31-2 is embarrassing.
Just another reminder of the absolute just kick in the you-know-what it is that it's been 10 years since the division has been won by the Colts. And that, once again, just like last year, there is a golden opportunity to win a awful division. It's the worst division in the AFC, once again. It's going to be won by a, 9 or 10 win Texan team. That is
nobody believes in the Texans.
Very banged up.
They're finished. Yeah, they're finished.
And you had the 1 year. Tennessee had the 1 year, I think, with Tannehill. They might have been actually the 1 seed, if I remember correctly. Outside of that, this division is just the first 1 to 9 or 10 every year. It's never a 12-win, 13-win, oh boy, that's a Super Bowl favorite coming out of the AFC South. No. It's the best-looking Bowen. That's what it is. That's simply what it is.
Don't say it like that. I don't like that.
That's
Come
reality.
On. I mean, the division stinks, and we had high hopes for it, but it stinks. I mean, the Titans are dead in the water. I mean, maybe a new coach, an elite coach, I don't know, you tell me, can come in and revive whatever the hell's happened to Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. I mean, on paper, Jacksonville does have a little bit of talent, but, the Colts are just in the middle. They're not terrible. I mean, they've had a terrible year here or there, but they're not great. They're not terrible. They're in the middle. They're just missing things out. But you're watching that, and it's like, again, if you could have got to the last 3-4 weeks of the season and made it mean something, boy, that would have been a lot of fun. And the Colts couldn't take care of business. And so, yeah, you're going to get Houston that's going to limp in, and they're going to limp right back out in one game. And they're going to host a game, by the way.
I think the other thing, too, that stood out to me is if you start to look at the standings and where these two teams are, again, I don't think Houston's a lock to win, their final game of the season here.
Listen, I'm with you. They might be finished.
Like, all the Colts needed was one more win, not just one more against Houston. Yes, obviously that would have been, really great, obviously. But still, if they could have just beat Jacksonville or just beat whatever, Green Bay with Malik Willis, you still would be in a position where you're putting Week 18 pressure on them. Now, you haven't put any late season. I mean, again, the division was eliminated with 3 weeks to go in the season for a team that could win the division at 9-8 or maybe 10-7. I think that just kind of adds to the overall frustration of this 9-8, if it indeed happens, will not be like last year's 9-8. And I've made that, I think, very clear for the last couple of weeks. And I think if you're a Colts fan, you should hope long and hard that Jim Irsay views this 9-8 differently than last 9-8. I'm not holding my breath, he will, but it needs to be viewed in a different light.
Well, I mean, the thing that matters as well is winning the division. Now this is back-to-back years where the Texans get a home playoff game.
Right.
They get all the money. I mean, Jim Irsay may say, we may talk about the record and everything else, but I know one thing that I'm sure Irsay still likes, and that is money. And you get a lot of money when you're playing in these playoff games and you're hosting a playoff game. And just, for the Texans, who do they play the final game of the year?
Titans, right?
Is it the Titans? Yeah, I believe it is. Listen, the Titans, I think, are... They're about as ugly of a football team as can be. I mean, they quit. They have had games where they have flat out quit. They've been a soft team. So, sure, in Tennessee, could they rally for one more? We'll see what happens with that one. But
it's just that you didn't put any pressure on them.
But the story of the Texans is disappointment. It's C.J. Stroud looks like crap. It's the fact that, they're injured, and that's such a huge part of it with guys like Tank Dell. They went all in. They made the trade for Stephon Diggs. He got injured halfway through the year. So,
yeah, even Nico Collins missed a month.
Even though, and they looked like dogs on the other day on Christmas. I mean, 31-2. It was absolutely embarrassing. That's the story of their season, and it's still going to be better than the Colts season. And that's just a kick in the you-know-what. You're exactly right. We talked about it yesterday. You're spot on.
Colts Giants again Sunday 1 o'clock. It's going to be a Fox game. You'll have Jonathan Vilma, Kenny Albert on the call about a touchdown favorite. Corbin, let's play that Anthony Richardson audio. He was asked earlier this week, and again, this was pre-injury report. It's kind of been a jumbled schedule for the Colts this week with Christmas. So pops up on the injury report after this question was asked with a back and a foot injury. He has not practiced as of this morning. We'll see if he gets out there for the final practice of today and how he reacts to that practice as well. But this was Anthony Richardson on playing this NFL season, which, again, up until this point, he's missed only 2 games due to injury.
From the start of the season, you're going to feel those hits in the next day. It's kind of weird because I was telling my family, like, in college, I didn't really get sore. But in NFL, it's a different breed, different game. You know, you got some grown men out there playing football, so it's always a little different, getting tackled by those guys. But, it's all part of it. You just got to keep adjusting and just keep your body right so you can keep performing.
Andy, it seems like, based off those comments and watching that Titans game, this injury is just general wear and tear. Some of these hits have probably just kind of added up. Again, he's played 5 straight games, actually 7 if you want to go back pre-benching. If you look at his rushing numbers, I want to say before he suffered that oblique injury back in late September, I think he's averaging 5 carries more per game here over the last couple of months.
I think it's 45 carries in the last 5 games, but he's also taking other hits. He's getting sacked. He's being, guys are on his back while he's trying to throw the ball away. All those add up. So he's taking 15 hits a game, maybe something like that.
I don't remember one particular play. I know he lowered his head on the goal line. Again, you go back and you watch that final run of the game on the 2nd and 8, and he doesn't look to be favoring anything. So we'll see if this indeed will be the first time in his NFL career where he has a limited to no practice week and still plays on a Sunday. If you go back earlier in the season when he missed those 2 games with the oblique, technically, Andy, he didn't miss a single practice. He was limited that first week, and as I said on the show, every morning after those practices, I go, limited is not doing it justice. He's doing as much of practice as I am. Now, the next week, he was actually full early in the week, and then they got to Friday, and they scaled him back to limited. So I know there's some optimism about him still playing on Sunday, but I'm going to want to see how today plays out before I commit myself to it.
What's the, I think what we don't know is, what's the threshold on he hasn't practiced? Like, some guys cannot practice. Like, my mind went to Aaron Rodgers. That's the last one. Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
If Mahomes didn't practice, and I know I'm using the best quarterback or a Josh Allen, I'm trying to think of would Geno Smith fit this month? I think of a middle-of-the-road guy.
So in 2016,
NFL.
Andrew Luck never practiced on Thursdays that week. That's how they kind of treated his shoulder issue. And again, I know Andrew Luck, could even be different. But to your point, Andy, I would say in a given week with the 32 starting quarterbacks, I don't know, nearly half of them maybe miss some sort of practice. Maybe that's too much. But, let's say 8 to 10 miss some sort of practice time and yet still play that Sunday. With Richardson, again, we've yet to see that. The question is this week going to be the first time?
I am very pro on this season. Everyone has told me that this season is about the development of Anthony Richardson. And I agree with that. In fact, I think there will be some, while they're angry about the way this season is going to go, and that's not making the playoffs yet again. It's all those different things. Getting answers or getting data on Anthony Richardson is the most important thing. That is trumping in some people's minds even the win-loss record. Not totally in my mind, but I think there are some. And if that's the case, I think Anthony Richardson needs to play. I think if he's healthy enough, this is giving him, listen, he's up against a bad defense. He's going to be in the elements. He's not going to have a full week of practice. He's going to be a little bit banged up. If this guy's going to be your quarterback going forward, to me, I am still in the boat of these are valuable experiences to get the guy some reps. And I know you're out of playoff contention, but if the only time you're going to get the guy reps is playoff contention, the Colts are never going to have a quarterback because they're not in playoff contention very much, quite frankly. So I want to see Anthony Richardson out there. I mean, if there's a foot issue or a back issue where they feel like he's not healthy enough, that's a different question. But if he's healthy enough where they think he can go out there and play against this stinky defense, I want to see him.
Yeah, I think I'm there. And again, we've talked about this for the past couple of times we've dealt with Richardson injury situations. If you have to wait till he's 100% to play,
good luck.
His playing style is not going to allude to many of those opportunities. Like he's going to be a limited quarterback. How many times have we seen Lamar Jackson pop up on the injury report this year?
Sure.
A lot. We've seen Lamar even miss time in some past December. So this time of year, hell, welcome to life in the NFL. Listen to Richardson's comments. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that he is obviously feeling something. So, yes, to your point, Andy, I do think it's important to get used to, okay, you don't have your fastball. Show us the other pitches. If all of a sudden you're a little bit limited as a runner, how do you adjust? How do you compensate? Those things are important. But there is the bird on the other shoulder. I brought this up earlier in the show that part of me is like, wait a minute. the only thing that matters for Anthony Richardson's career moving forward is this offseason. This offseason is going to be beyond vital.
What if they're not eliminated on Saturday? And I know, listen, we don't think they're making the playoffs, but what if this does go to the final week of the year?
Yeah, again,
where the Broncos need to beat the Chiefs.
I think these are good reps. I think they are different reps. I think it's great opportunities to grow, but at the same time, I don't think we're all of a sudden going to see these monumental strides accuracy-wise in the final 2 weeks. That time is going to come in the offseason. And if he were to suffer an injury here in the final 2 weeks, or further an injury to where all of a sudden, hey, the back or the foot issue means he doesn't touch a football till April 1 or March 1.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. I know.
I'm going to look like an idiot sitting here being like, man, that was so key. He played in the rain in MetLife against a 10-loss or however many losses in a row the Giants have.
They haven't won a home game. By the way, the Colts better not F around in this game. I'm already worried about it.
We got
no effing around. Come on, you got to get the win. 33-9. Get the win and get the hell out of town.
We got our coach quote earlier in the week. When NFL coaches lead off with this,
oh boy,
it means the other team stinks. So you have to read code language, okay?
Right. Some people call it line.
Right.
We call it coded coach language. What did Steichen say?
When the coach describes the other team with the first three words that are this, that means they stink.
Oh boy.
Hey, coach, what are your thoughts on the Giants? They play hard.
Yeah.
When you start off with the magical phrase of they play hard, that pretty much means they freaking suck.
Well, you know what that is in real life? That is he or she has a great personality.
Yes, 1,000%.
Well, what does he look like? What does she look like?
Nice
they
guy.
Got a great personality. They're really nice.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
I feel like we'd be good friends.
They're really funny. Oh, okay.
That's pretty much what that means.
Do they play hard? Actually, I'm questioning Shane Steichen. You're right. He went to because he's very much, I'm going to give you cliche. He went to the cliche, and the cliché's not true, unfortunately. I don't think.
I think we heard this during the Jets week. I think we heard it during the Patriots week. They play hard.
They're playing for their team.
Now, again, something we brought up in the opening segment, I think the possible elimination from the playoffs on Saturday, it would occur so late in the night. I don't think all of a sudden you can be like, hey, Richardson, we've planned all week for you to be the guy, even though you've been living in practice. Now we're going to go with Flacco. Again, I know we've discussed it a lot, but if the Chargers beat the Patriots at 1 o'clock and then the Broncos beat the Bengals at 4:30, both of those games tomorrow, then the Colts would be eliminated. If only one of those happen or neither of them happen, then the Colts will still be playing for their playoff hopes to stay alive with the win on Sunday there. So, again, I think because it's so late in the week, I don't think it would greatly shift your thinking there. If you had the Christmas games that we just saw, if that impacted you, maybe you would handle it a little bit differently. So, again, I largely think Richardson should play. These are times where he's going to have these moments in his NFL career where you're less than 100%, you have a scaled-back practice, it's potentially a do-or-die game, your team needs you. I'm there. But there is part of me that's like, damn, these two games don't really matter in terms of, making him a significantly better passer. The offseason, it's going to be a weird 2025 where it's all about behind the scenes, and he's going to have to be super motivated where you don't have the dangling carrot of Sunday football waiting for you at the end of the week, and you're going to need the self-motivation.
It's grow-up time for
You're
Anthony
going to need
Richardson.
all of that, and all of it is going to be outside of on social media, occasionally when they throw up the one Instagram reel a month, that's all we're going to get in terms of knowing how that work is operating. So that's where I do have just a little bit of seed of doubt in him, and we'll obviously see how he reacts to this practice because, back in a foot, he's nothing to sneeze at here leading into Friday's final practice.
Is Joe Flacco going to be warming up with the rugby ball if he ends up playing? Joe Flacco, is that something
I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably not.
Is there anything...
Former MetLife quarterback, right? Joe Flacco, former Jet?
Former Jet, great. And I ask this, if... I think the answer is no. Let's move the playoffs aside because we do not believe that is going to happen. And like we said, they could be eliminated on Saturday. There is still if you're the Colts, we don't totally know what's going to happen at the end of the season. This game in Jacksonville still would be, especially the Giants. I mean, the way I view it, and Jacksonville is terrible as well. Jacksonville has more talent, though, right now with what they're putting on the field than the Giants. It's still one of those things that if you're Steichen and company, like, if you were to lose this game, this would be the embarrassing moment of the season.
Oh, sure.
Like, whether you have Joe Flacco back there or Anthony Richardson. So we can kind of toss the game aside to a certain extent, but there is still, even though, like, we have a promo running right now with JMV's talking, I would imagine it's before, it's right, it's from Monday, where he's talking about how, he thinks they go 9-8 and, nothing happens, and next year it's going to come down to the maturation of AR, and I tend to agree with him. But this is one of those games that if you lose, you look at everyone else in that room differently. I look at everyone. I mean, if AR plays and he played bad enough that they lost, I would look at him and Shane Steichen different than I do today.
Just a reminder, the University of Notre Dame.
Don't do this. Don't do it.
And the Indianapolis Colts. The University of Notre Dame and the Indianapolis Colts have each won more football games at MetLife this season than the Giants.
Dude, they're bad. They're going to be, and this is their...
Hell, Notre Dame might have more touchdowns at MetLife.
I think the Giants
Notre Dame had 7 against Navy. How many of the Giants scored all year?
The Giants, Daniel Jones went like a year without throwing a touchdown, and the Giants only have, I think, 3 or 4 interceptions on the season. They let Xavier McKinney go, who went to the, who is the safety, who went to the Packers, and he might have, Corbin could look it up, he might have 8 interceptions himself.
I think the Giants
on
have
the season.
3 interceptions. Again, for those that haven't seen it, which I understandably.
God bless you.
The weather looks pretty ugly for Sunday, so you would think if Richardson were to play, it would be honestly, it'd probably be a heavy dose of what we saw last week indoors.
Jonathan Taylor has to be licking his chops. Those offensive linemen
and the Giants
for the Colts,
are really banged up in the front seven.
Oh, they got nobody.
Bobby Okereke, who's had a nice run. I mean, you would say that. I think
Andy, he's been good, yeah.
With the Giants, he's on IR. Dexter Lawrence, easily their best player, certainly their best defensive player, is on injured reserve as well. So, there is part of me that sees a spread at 7.5 and thinks, why is it not bigger?
Well, and I've been struggling yesterday. I talked about it. I think Colts 7.5. I think that's a slam dunk. And not even that. Like, what do you do with the over-under? Like, I think the Colts could be right around 30 points in this game.
It was a little higher than I thought.
Yeah, it was 40.5, at least what it opened at. One last thing, it's interesting as well. The way these two teams are a little bit similar is... right now...
God, that's a scary
thought. It is, but, I mean, think about it for a second. I think Colts fans like Shane Steichen enough, but they want Chris Ballard gone. I kind of feel the same way a little bit with the Giants, that I could be sold on Brian Dable, the coach, coming back, but the general manager has whiffed on a couple different drafts.
Yeah,
Joe Shane. He's just whiffed.
Dable thing is like he was the one with Josh Allen all along.
Yeah.
And so, when you think about quarterback development, and they haven't drafted a quarterback, correct, under Dable?
Nope.
At all, right?
Nope.
In any
haven't
of those
done
years.
a thing.
So,
nope.
Yeah.
And they've always been just good enough to where they've been on the outside of that.
Right.
And
obviously,
that's the scary
Malik
thing.
Neighbors looks like a stud. So, Neighbors yet to practice this week. The local connections, Tyrone Tracy, who's been a really nice find as a day 3 guy. He has yet to practice. And Micah McFadden. So, Indiana fans will certainly know that name. Micah McFadden has yet to practice. He's been their leading tackler without Okereke. So, the Giants have a lengthy and notable injury report here coming into week 17.
Yeah, I looked up the box score from the Atlanta game, and there's 4 or 5 guys on there. I'm like, man, I don't know where these guys came from. I mean,
those 11 defensive players,
you
could tell me they start for the New York Islanders, and I would believe you.
And you would have no idea. So, hey, listen, they're a bad team. I wouldn't mind if they sat everyone. You got to try to get the number 1 or number 2 pick. All right, Colts, we'll keep that conversation. How did the Colts get the win? Plus, high school basketball really picking up here around this time of year. Greg Rakestraw, he'll join us. We'll do it next here, 8 o'clock hour, around the corner. It's a Football Friday on the Fan.
Well, the final Friday of December, this time of year, certainly brings one of the more heralded events on the high school slate here from an annual basis. Out east on I-70, the one, the only, Greg Rakestraw with us. I don't know, is he on 70 right now? The Girls Hall of Fame Classic today, boys tomorrow. Rake, are we getting you mid-commute? Are you pulling into the Steve Alford Inn as we speak?
I am wearing a shirt and tie. It must be the Hall of Fame Classic at the end of December. I am not on I-70 currently. I am actually in Lawrence. I'm taking the country back roads way to get to Newcastle today.
Have you ever stayed at the Steve Alford Inn?
I have not stayed at the Steve Alford Inn, but I thought about booking a room for this weekend or even going the fancy schmancy Airbnb route, but I did not.
Well, Andy, this is
This
is your Jeffersonville Red Devils, correct? Right? In the boys' classic?
Yeah, they struggled last weekend, though. I'm a little bit worried, Rake. Just a little bit
Andy,
worried.
Your best player returns this weekend. You got nothing to worry about.
Oh, so he's back this weekend?
That is correct. He has been cleared. We'll see how much he can play in 2 games. But Jeffersonville is one of 4 teams in the area or in the state that are top 10 to top 20 teams where you just go, hey, just wait until they get their best player back, hit the reset button. They are one. Addix is one, whom obviously they beat on Saturday, responding back after getting beat by Silver Creek. Ben Davis with Mark Zachary and Warren Central gets Javon Guest back today when they play up in the Phil Cox tournament in Kokomo. So this has been a strange year where one of the most major storylines of the season so far seemingly has been who's not playing from an injury standpoint. Because there have been some notable ones from the senior class.
Greg Rakestraw joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Rake, you like this. I'm a buddy whose dad, long time, has had Jeff High season basketball tickets, right? You know, he's one of those that's been to all the games when they've been good, when they've been bad, and everything in between. If I'm not mistaken, I think Jeff only played at home one time in this season so far. I think
Jeff has been great, and Sharon Wilkerson gets this from Mike Broad, who did the exact same thing 30 years ago.
It's a good idea.
And this is the philosophy of any team from outside of the Indianapolis area thinks they have a chance of winning a state championship.
Yeah.
And that is play your conference games, play your good teams locally, then get the heck to Indianapolis. And so far the Red Devils have played Cathedral. That was a home game. That was the home opener, November the 30th. I think they played twice at home, actually, so far. They played Pike into the Benton, Cincinnati. They played Noblesville at Southport. They played Addix in Evansville. They are playing, Greenfield and then either Fishers or Warsaw tomorrow in Newcastle. They are playing at Lawrence North next Saturday. I think Jeff might finish second or third in the mix this year. That's how many games they're playing in the Indianapolis area, which is absolutely what you need to do.
It's just funny. My buddy's father was complaining about it. I'm like, well, listen, you think you're going to be good? This is what you got to do. Not everything can be Floyd Central and Clarksville, Providence. No offense to those down by them. If someone's just checking in here, new year, okay, football obviously winding down. High school football was done a couple weeks ago. And you could give them the Cliff Notes version, 2 or 3 big storylines that have kind of emerged in the high school basketball season here early on. What would they be?
Injuries 1, Braylon Mullins is Mr. Basketball 2, and somehow Fishers graduated their top 2 scorers and got better. Those are the storylines. Fishers, who I will see again tomorrow, Garrett Weininger has turned that program into a monster. They really played a 9-man rotation last year. 6 of those guys came back. Keenan Garner was an all-star, now playing at IU Indy. Caden Metzger off that team, now playing at Huntington. But they are loaded, and they're not going to slow down anytime soon. They've got John Anthony Hall that's going to play football at Stanford. They've got the Kirby kid that's heading to play at Miami of Ohio. But what you'll talk about most likely are the 2 sophomore guards. Jason Gardner Jr., obviously son of Mr. Basketball, former IUPUI and North Central coach down the staff at Arizona. And then Cooper Zachary. Cooper started last year. Jason came off the bench. They both start this year. Gardner is a kid that as a sophomore, he can pick his program he wants to play for 3 years from now. He's that level of player. I'm not sure if that's the case for Cooper, but he's just a really good high school player and will play likely the Division I level someplace 3 years from now as well. They're big, and the Baker kid can step out and shoot. The kind of modern basketball, your 5 can knock down threes, but they are a monster. And I'm not sure who's close to them at this point.
That'll be the first game coming up tomorrow. Warsaw and Fishers and Greenfield Central with Braylon Mullins and Andy's Jeffersonville Red Devils coming up in the second game. Greg Rakes will have your coverage out there at Newcastle for the Hall of Fame Classic. Rake will also be a busy man Sunday. Colts post-game show host. As we sit here on this Friday morning, Rake, we don't know about Anthony Richardson and his status for Sunday. Back and foot ailments. He's yet to practice this week. You recall any play in that Titans game that all of a sudden you saw that on the injury report and you're like, oh, yeah, that does make sense?
No, I started doing the math in my head last night. I didn't practice for a second day in a row. And I'm literally like, he took a sack, he ran the ball 9 times, he threw it 11. Everything else was handing it off to Jonathan Taylor or somebody spelling Jonathan Taylor for 2 drives. So there were, 21 transactions, if you will, where he could have been hurt, and I don't remember a single one of them. So no, it's a good question, and frankly, we haven't as much lately had kind of the big picture philosophical discussion in terms of, can Anthony Richardson be a successful quarterback without having to be a running quarterback? Since he came back from that benching, obviously there have been a lot more running plays called for Richardson, which is largely why he has been more successful, for the Indianapolis Colts as of late. Because I don't think he's anywhere close to the point of being able to be, again, a successful starting quarterback if you don't heavily lean into the running game with him. And so it's probably more of an off-season conversation to have, but it's just kind of a reminder that that debate, that discussion is still out there in terms of what AR's future is going to look like.
I think for the most part, people have been kind of in unison, reps. That's what matters with Richardson. Yep. As you sit here with 2 weeks to go, you see him yet to practice this week. I don't know if you see the weather for Sunday. It looks pretty ugly from a rain standpoint. Is there any part of you that says just get to the offseason finish line healthy? I don't care about your reps in the final 2 weeks, especially if you're eliminated, I guess, coming up tomorrow. Is there any part of you that says that, or are you still on team reps? You got to learn how to be an NFL quarterback.
I'm on reps if healthy, and obviously I think the results of Saturday dictate what you have to do with him on Sunday. If you're not going to be a playoff team, and I know that scenario is likely, but if you know mathematically for certain because of what happens on Saturday afternoon, and he is not 100%, you sit him. You play Flacco. Heck, you play Ellinger at this point. And again, because of the level of competition, I'm not sure it's going to make that big of a difference against the New York Giants, whomever you might play. I am on team reps. I am on team health, and you somehow have to, balance, manage, merge the two of these final 2 games of the season.
Greg Rakestraw joining us here, Football Friday on the Fan. He joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Just general thoughts, Rake, if you don't mind. We haven't talked to you since, obviously, the college football playoff game, Indiana, Notre Dame. Notre Dame taking care of Indiana. You had Kirk Cignetti going on College Game Day 90 minutes before, talking about how many big wins he had at JMU, cutting a wrestling promo. Just everything that went around that game, how it looked on TV, what it meant for the state. What did you think as you were watching that game? And obviously, Notre Dame looked very much like the varsity and Indiana looked like the JV.
I felt better about how Indiana looked after the next 3 games on Saturday.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, no kidding.
That looked a lot like them. This was still a remarkable year in Indiana football. This was still the best year in the history of Indiana University football. And for a program that's been playing for, north of 125 years, that is a mouthful of a statement to make. But the days of being the cute underdog are over. Now there are the weight of expectations, and they will be held to what happened in that Notre Dame game for all of next year. Whatever their ranking is, whatever teams they're going to beat, whatever bowl game / playoff they end up in, that will be the mirror that will be held up against them. And so it does not shorten, it does not discount what was accomplished in 2024. But in 2025, that's the first example of, all right, now people expect something. And so that will be the conversation. It will be on the next group of Indiana Hoosiers, those that are returning and those new names and faces that are already being portaled in to usher the next wave of what Kirk said he can do in year number 2. Now you know what the bar is. Now you got to go out and improve it.
Right, they expanded the Hall of Fame over there, didn't they, in Newcastle?
They did. There's actually a chance I might get in at some point in time, yes.
Look at that. I mean, come on. I don't know how you're not the first bust as you walk in.
Yeah, come on.
No,
I mean, literally.
No,
you should be in front of Rick Mount.
No.
Now
But yes, they did expand the Hall of Fame. 6,000 new square feet. Part of it is this wonderful Title IX exhibit. And the other big news is that, not that it was this massive barrier, I think it was $3 to get in. Admission is now free. So they're open 10 to 6 each of the next 2 days. But admission is free going forward at the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I gotta love
that. Go check out the newly expanded Indiana High School Basketball Hall of Fame.
Looking for some time to kill in between games. Coming up tomorrow over there again, Warsaw Fishers 11, Greenfield Central, Jeffersonville to follow. Consolation game starts at 6, championship game to follow that. You can check that off the bucket list. Drake, always enjoy hearing your voice. Hope you and the family had a great, great Christmas, and I will see you coming up next week.
Same to you, fellas, and let me plug today because the girls play today, and the 4 girls teams that are playing in this event have a combined 1 loss, and they're all in the top 7 of the Sagarin ratings in the state, and one of them is a 2A school in South Knox. But the game that a lot of people expect to see for the 4A state championship is HSE and Lawrence Central. That could be tonight's championship game. So you can get your hoops fixed in Newcastle both of the next 2 days, and these fields are both phenomenal. So thank you, fellas. Enjoy your weekend.
A happy new year to the great Greg Rakestraw right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. You know, going back to the Kurt Signetti comments in Indiana, I'm sure you and Mark talked about it yesterday. Fernando Mendoza, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from
the
Cal.
quarterback. Boy, I get some Curtis Rourke vibes and just kind of looking at some of his stats and looking at.
It's about right.
You know, even his playing style. You know, seems like a guy that wants to be in the pocket, doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot, pretty accurate. Makes a lot of sense. Kind of fit. And the thing was, Signetti, you just kind of bet on him with quarterbacks. You know, he had all those different QBs at JMU, and a lot of them turned out to be conference players of the year. And, you know, obviously here with what Rourke did in year 1. And the thing about Mendoza, too, he's got multiple years of eligibility left.
Yeah, he's a little bit more valuable because of that. And who knows,
not the one-stop shop like a Riley Leonard, South Bend, or Curtis Rourke this past year.
I'm a little bit interested. You know, at JMU and other stops, he had a quarterback that could run a little bit. I'm interested. He's not doing that here in the first couple years, seemingly at Indiana. I don't know if I'm not denouncing that. I just am a little bit surprised by that. Maybe a little bit of a change of philosophy. And I do think what Rakestraw said is spot on. Because, you know, I probably have talked about this a little bit more until the end of the season, and now everyone's picking up on it, and that is, you know, the being the underdog and being the cute little underdog and, you know, people taking you for granted and then coming out and losing to you is probably just about over for Indiana. I got to be honest, going into next year, I am fascinated, KB, with what Indiana is going to be, you know, win-loss-wise, how they're going to look. You know, this year they didn't go through tons of adversity. They didn't lose a couple games.
They were incredibly healthy.
You know, they were healthy. They had the Curtis Rourke injury. They were able to get by that. By the way, did you see floating around someone had zoomed in on the thumb of Curtis Rourke?
Yeah, that was ugly.
And that was being used as kind of an excuse maybe against Notre Dame. I thought of you. I know you were off. I thought of you when I saw that. But, like, what's Indiana going to be? And then Indiana
sure
fans...
would have helped tackling Jeremiah Love on the 98-yard touchdown.
Like, is Indiana going to have the same crowd support? Are they going to beg the fans to come back? Are they going to expect, maybe not college football, but, I mean, I'm expecting them next year to be 9-3 and not have games where they just get absolutely wiped up like they did against Notre Dame. Just everything that Indiana did this year is so damn different than anything they've ever done. I don't know how they replicate that or how they wipe the slate clean and get back at it next year. To me, everything from fans to win-loss record to how the quarterback looks, all of that is going to be super interesting. And they've had a couple defensive players come back already
I would say that,
and shun the NFL, which is a good thing.
Yeah, Mikhail Kamara getting him back again. The Mendoza kid, you know what? Georgia, Miami, maybe were a couple of rumored teams too. Like, yeah, that is a sign that okay, maybe things are different. You know, whether it's NIL that's leading that, whether it's guys that just frankly want to play there. Again, Signetti's track record with quarterbacks, I think would be pretty attractive to portal QBs. But to your point, again, their health was rather impeccable, frankly. this season. Obviously, the schedule we talked about. And then there is the element of, too, of like, yes, there are still some JMU guys that are still there, but, do you have the same sort of mindset, chip on the shoulder, et cetera, with guys that are not? Hey, I wasn't recruited by blah, blah, blah. I know Cignetti's culture, this and that. Do you continue to develop that within your program? So where natural attrition occurs and you have guys that can step up and flourish in those moments and not necessarily maybe, hey, we've got, one line of defense. Do you create some depth there? So it seems like Indiana, from a early offseason standpoint, whether it's guys returning or getting that quarterback box checked, good strides in that area. One thing to note, Greg Rakestraw brought up that if the Colts are eliminated Saturday, that would impact his decision to be the starting quarterback on Sunday.
That was interesting because I think I disagree with that.
Just to play out the timeline, for those that haven't been listening, the Colts would be eliminated at the earliest at like 7:30, 8 p.m. Saturday night. I mean, at that point, you got a meeting or two left, and then you're boarding a bus at 9 or 10 a.m. for MetLife the next morning. So I understand where Rake is coming from, but that's different than, for example, the Chiefs just clinched the 1 seed on Christmas on a Wednesday.
Right.
Well, you got 3 more days of prep time if that impacts your playoff situation. For the Colts, you're going to have about 2 hours until bedtime when Broncos-Bengals get over. Again, if you want the Colts in the playoffs.
Everyone going to bed at 10:30 on the team? I'm joking, yeah. Are they gonna watch a movie, go to bed at 10 o'clock? What are they, me?
Maybe Flacco's probably the only one going to bed early thinking, here I am away from the kids. I'm going to spend my time here.
It's a great point after a busy Christmas. They just put on the tape of the Seahawks and Bears from last night. Yeah. That puts everyone right to sleep in 5 minutes.
I was going to say, you'll be in REM sleep by Al Michaels' first
But you're right. I mean, the game's the Broncos-Bengals doesn't start till 4:30.
Yeah, so you need Patriots to beat Chargers. That is the 1 o'clock game. And then Bengals-Broncos, like you mentioned, at 4:30. You need Cincinnati over Denver in that one. To me, it's just too late to really matter.
I agree. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, it is, right?
And some would say,
they're going to know by 8:30 who's going to be the starting quarterback.
Some would say it shouldn't matter. Some would say, no. Again, reps are vital for Anthony Richardson, et cetera, et cetera. And then, as I said to Rake, yes, I probably am in that camp, but there is part of me that's like, all that matters for Anthony Richardson right now is figuring it out in the offseason. And it out is a lot. He's got to figure a lot out, particularly as a thrower.
Sure. And,
you're going to strip it down fundamentally. You're going to change quarterback coaches. What are you going to do to become a better, more consistent, accurate thrower of the football? I don't think 48 degrees and pouring down rain in MetLife on Sunday at 1 o'clock is really going to change that.
Now, I will say, settle down, Rake, with you could put Sam Ehlinger in the game. Listen, touchdown Sam. He ain't got a chance when you put Todd Boyle. What's his name? Tad Boyle. That's the guy that coached at Colorado.
Is it Tim or Tad?
No,
I have an uncle Tad.
Do you really?
Yeah, he's a great human.
Are we still making Tads?
Paul is his real name, so I don't. Boy, I can't. I think I've come across another Tad or two, but not many.
I don't know if we have. I am give Anthony Richardson all the reps you can give. We've been yelling and screaming about how he needs reps. Well, I mean, these next 2 games, I know they're bad teams, but they're reps against really bad teams, and that this still has some sort of value. Yes, this is not the Chiefs or the Texans or, even the Broncos a couple weeks ago. No, it's the worst team in football in the Giants, but I don't know. Everyone says, and listen, I agree with you when what's going to happen, the thought is, what's going to happen the next 2 weeks? It's going to be like, it's going to change the way you really view Anthony Richardson. And for you and I, the answer is not very much. But if AR in the next 2 games went out and looked really, really good against 2 crappy teams, I think there would be a segment of the fans that would take that into the offseason and carry that through the offseason into why he's going to be better next year, and they would look at those 2 games. I'm not going to do it. You're not going to do it, but I think some fans will.
I would add this. If he is able to give it a go on Sunday and his legs are cut off, like he's not the runner that he has been over the last month and a half, I want to see that.
I do too.
I want to see him without the fastball. I want to see the stud 3-point shooter when they're running at him at the line all day long. And do you show other parts of your game? That's kind of an area where I am intrigued by, all right, welcome to life in the NFL, man. There are some weeks where quarterbacks don't practice and take every rep. He has yet to do that in his NFL career. He has yet to play in a game where he has missed any practice time. That is on the docket for this week. So, again, the Colts will practice coming up today around noon. We'll continue to update you on that, all three of our shows today. We'll do our picks coming up at 8:30, our popcorn games. Andy Sweeney, I assume Gamebridge Fieldhouse, where you'll begin this morning check down.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it.
The morning checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs basketball. New Year's Day, the Dogs continue Big East play with a 6:30 p.m. tip-off against Villanova at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
Yeah, the Pacers were on quite the roll. In fact, they led by 4 points in this game in the final 3.5 minutes in the fourth quarter, but they lose, unfortunately. Oklahoma City, really one of the better teams, KB, in the entire league. 121-14, that's your final last night. Now, the good for the Pacers, you had a double-double. Pascal Siakam, who's been really good this season. He had 22 and 10 in the loss. Andrew Nembhard, really one of his better games since he came back from that injury. 23 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists in the loss. But the bad, Tyrese Halliburton completely locked down by Lou Dort and really wasn't even a part of the game. I mean, I can't even think of plays that he even made, especially down the stretch. Just 4 points in 35 minutes. As for the Thunder, tied a career high to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 45 points last night. As for the Pacers, back in action tonight in Boston. That's a 7:30 tip. Our coverage on the Fan at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I think that's what stings about last night is Halliburton has clearly a bad off night, however you want to describe it, yet you still had a lead late against the best team in the West, and you couldn't finish it off. And now, like you said, you get a reeling Celtics team. They actually have lost 2 in a row for the first time all year, 3 of 4, 4 of 7. They are an 11.5-point favorite as a back-to-back here for the Pacers. Obi Toppin, iffy for those that watched it last night. That looked ugly. Him falling to that ankle injury, tried to come back in the game.
I'm surprised he did.
Yeah, it did not look like his normal self. I thought Jarris Walker gave him good minutes, but anytime you face Tatum, Brown, Giannis on New Year's Eve, guys like Obi Toppin do matter a whole lot. So, again, 7:30, as Andy said, Pacers-Celtics tonight. All right, Colts final practice of the week. We've gone over the Anthony Richardson side of it. Quentin Nelson limited yesterday with an ankle injury, perhaps something to keep an eye on. Outside of that, I'd say pretty good for the Colts. Alec Pierce has progressed through concussion protocol, so good news on that end. We'll see if Juju Brents gets his debut, but his first game action since being hurt in the opener. He has practiced again this week, whereas your Giants are really banged up. Malik Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy, Micah McFadden, their starting center, all hurt. And Andy, I think Neighbors people know of, but those are some other notable names out for your Giants.
Dude, they have nobody. Their defense, I mean, they're better. They'll have Brian Burns will play, and Kayvon Thibodeau will play. And if Micah McFadden gets out there, local fans will know him. But besides Burns and besides Thibodeau, you're not going to know a person on the Giants defense, nor should you. And if you do, you're a sick individual who pays attention to the crappy teams in the NFL way too much. They don't have anybody, man. They don't have anybody.
I mean,
Adoree Jackson. You remember the name Adoree Jackson?
Yeah, didn't he get torched in Tennessee a bunch?
Oh, yeah. He's on the team. He got cut, and then he came back.
Speaking of football, last night they attempted to play that in Soldier Field. It was the lowest scoring game all season in the NFL, hence why Mark Dykton is not in today. 6-3, Seahawks over Bears. The game ended exactly how you would thought it would end. Caleb Williams, desperation heap. I swear that man was under pressure all night long. Every time I flipped over.
7 sacks, I think he took.
He's just running for his life.
They stink. Boy, they're bad. 10 straight losses. I mean, literally,
ever since the Hail Mary.
Their season ended on that Hail Mary 2 months ago. It's unbelievable. Like, they were a good team. They were about ready to be 5-2 on the season. The Hail Mary happens, they lose 10 straight games. I mean, they're a mess.
Utterly incredible.
Give us one more swoosh. Some college basketball on Sunday. Really a dead time right now. IU basketball, they host Winthrop Sunday at 4 o'clock. That big-time non-conference schedule for Mike Woodson. And Purdue and Toledo Sunday at 6 o'clock. You got anything else over there?
Just Jim Larinaga hanging it up, 75 years old. I would say a little pot kettle black in some of his
just a little
comments about the NIL and the transfer portal. Does he not remember his Final Four run?
Yeah, 18 months ago.
I will say the fact that he obviously took George Mason to Miami. That was Miami's first ever Final Four.
He's a
obviously,
good coach. He's a very good
George
coach.
Mason's as well. That's pretty impressive on the resume to have you took a school to their first ever Final Four. 2 different stops, 2 very different stops. Hell of a run there for Jim Larinaga. as he retires midseason because they are also terrible.
Yeah, Miami reminds me kind of one of those SEC jobs where you're not the big show in town. Football is, but basketball and with NIL and money still can be good, and the ACC can be had. Someone put out the stat. I mean, the ACC, with Coach K leaving and Larinaga leaving, of course, you had like what happened with the guys like Rick Pitino. I know that was several years ago. Roy Williams is on that
Mike
list.
Mike Bray on a much lower scale.
But Mike Bray was a very good coach. Jim Boeheim as well. I mean, they've lost some heavy hitters out of the ACC. And Tony Bennett, this year. And quite frankly, they haven't replaced him. So that's why the ACC stinks.
Last thing, Jaden Ivey, 4-point play last night to win it for the Kings. To win it against the Kings, I should say. The Pistons came back from 19 down, and Zach Edey, 21 and 16. Last night for the Grizzlies there. So Edey back in the lineup and a big night for him.
Yeah, the Grizzlies scored like 155 points or something ridiculous like that. Let's take a break. Who wins the game on Sunday and why? We'll give our predictions, but hell, Corbin's been great on his predictions. So we may need to listen to him more so than I. So we'll do that. And coming up, 9 o'clock, Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts. He'll join us as well. Appreciate you waking up with us. Wake up call 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Give our picks, Colts and Giants, Week 17 coming up here. Again, we'll get 3 Saturday games tomorrow. Both of the first 2 involve some significant playoff implications for the Colts. Chargers, Patriots, you want the evil empire. And then Cincinnati, Denver, you want the team closest to you. You want the Cincinnati Bengals to get it done. I did see this floated around yesterday on the internet. You see Ryan Walters could be doing a little Tom Allen action here coming up next year.
I saw that. He could go to Washington and take over for Belichick's son, who now left and went to North Carolina. Is it Steve Belichick? I always forget his first name.
Got a hell of a mullet.
He's got a great mullet. In fact, I'd put it right up there in sports, one of the better non-auto racing mullets that you could possibly have.
He looks like an 8th inning reliever.
He does. He looks great. And I mean great. He looks terrible most of the time. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Walters can go there, and I don't know. You tell me. Could probably go make a couple $1 million, right?
Jed Fish, that's the head coach right out there at Washington?
It is. He took over for Kalen DeBoer, who went to Alabama, and now Alabama fans want Nick Saban to come back. Please rescue their poor program, as they didn't make the college football playoff in year 1.
When I think of poor programs, I certainly think of Alabama, right? Purdue does play Washington next season for what it's worth on that, so we'll see if Ryan Walters finds a new job. All right, Colts, Giants. I asked you this in all seriousness about an hour ago, and as soon as I said it, it sounded like a stupid question. Drew Lock going to be the starter for the Giants here coming up Week 17. He had an MRI on his shoulder earlier in the week. Does it matter who starts for the Giants? They've had like 9 different quarterback starts since Daniel Jones.
They have. It's been a mess. It's been a mess. I think the fans there. I'll give you kind of the skinny on what's going on. The fans there wanted to see Tommy DeVito. Now I think Tommy DeVito is
he's one of them, or why?
Yeah, I think it's a sideshow. But it's the Tommy Cutlets. He could move a little bit. And if you remember, now this is probably 6 weeks ago or so. They named Tommy DeVito the starter after they got rid of Daniel Jones. And Drew Lock, was very open how hurt he was, and they paid Drew Lock $5 million. Much like Joe Flacco got paid here, they paid him $5 million to come in here and be the backup, and much like Joe Flacco, it was, Joe Flacco figured at some point I'm going to get to play with the injury history of Anthony Richardson, and that's basically what they thought with Daniel Jones, the agent of Drew Lock. Hey, number one, Daniel Jones stinks, and number two, could get released or benched or whatever. Andy's had so many injuries that there's a chance he'd get in, so it was his chance, and Drew Lock didn't get the first chance, and DeVito got injured immediately. He got concussion. He's had injury issues, and Drew Lock has been terrible. And he's been terrible where he throws the pick 6. So I don't know if you can go on ESPN Bet or DraftKings or FanDuel, but if you can get a bet down on a pick 6, and it's going to be way plus money, I don't think that's a bad bet to throw $5 on.
Look at you.
Because he has thrown pick 6s.
Pay
I think
for
he
your
had
New
2
Year's
last
Eve
week.
booze with Andy Sweeney going pick 6 on Drew Lock.
I mean, if it's plus 550 or more, you throw $5, $6, $10 on it. You
it
win
just
something.
Screams
Come on.
Kenny Moore pick 6, does it not?
It really does. So the Giants have been a mess. Obviously, I'm picking. We'll get to our official predictions. I'm picking the Colts to win. I find the over/under actually more interesting. If the Giants played with Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy in a somewhat healthy offensive line, I think they could maybe get to 13 points. And if they could do that, I would be comfortable in the Colts running game getting us to the over/under of 40.5. But I don't know. I mean, if they don't have Neighbors and they don't have Tyrone Tracy, you're looking at Wan'Dale Robinson being your number 1 receiver, Daniel Bellinger being your tight end, and Devin Singletary being your running back.
To show you how much the Giants stink, the Colts coaches have led off this week with the ultimate phrase of backhanded compliments of "they play hard" to describe them.
It's never good.
Whenever you hear a coach says that, they might as well say they bleep and suck.
Not good.
10 straight losses, longest streak in franchise history. Have not won a home game all year. That means the Colts and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish have won more games at MetLife, this stadium, than the Giants have. They have the number 1 pick right now, as long as they lose the last 2 games. They only have 2 wins. They would be going winless at home for the first time since 1974. 6 of their 10 losses in a row here, Andy, have been by double digits. I'm pretty sure that covers it all.
Yeah, listen, it's ugly, and for the Giants, they're hoping that nothing crazy happens. I mean, this Colts game, what will Philly be playing for in the final week of the year? I mean, Adam Schefter, we talked about this yesterday. Adam Schefter a few days ago was like, what if the Giants get to the final week and Philly lays down and the Giants beat them and they ruin their draft stock? I think the Giants are so bad this year.
Because there's a ton of 3-win teams lurking.
Sure. I mean, you saw the Raiders, you have Jacksonville, and you have the New England Patriots, and the Titans obviously are still out there. So I think the Giants, not, guys like Neighbors not practicing and Tyrone Tracy, I think they're telling you that, we're going to do everything possible to not win these to not win these football games. I think also what would be a funny prop is more touchdowns by the Giants offensively or planes flying over MetLife. On Sunday. The last month...
Sell the team? Isn't that the chant we heard last night at the Bears game?
It's not a sell the team, it's clean house. So they've had, on some of these games, 2 different planes fly over. If that happens on Sunday, I have no confidence the Giants can score 2 touchdowns, even against Gus Bradley.
They average 14 points per game. I'm like, gosh, that is so low. I'm going Colts 27-9.
27-9. Okay, so you had the under hitting then.
First multi-score win of the year for the Colts. They have yet to do that this season. I think awful weather. First off, I think it fits the Colts better, the awful weather.
I would agree.
And I think it also fits a team that is facing a team that largely shouldn't have much reason to care, a.k.a. the Giants. Giants have a ton of injuries in the front 7. You would think the Colts, especially if Richardson is the quarterback, would want to run it and not throw it very often. So, 27-9 Colts.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to go 33-9. I'm going to go 33-9. So
the weather's just limited my scoring a little bit.
It's totally understandable. I just think, boy, this is a Jonathan Taylor game. I think he has 200 yards and a couple touchdowns. I think they're able to, where they don't have to run AR if Anthony Richardson plays. I'm not sure it matters. One thing we never talked about, does it matter the MetLife turf if you play Anthony Richardson? That hasn't been a story this year. But it was a story. It was a story going into this season. Remember we talked about it?
Yeah, I'm always like, is that a myth or is that real?
Well, I think it's real. I think, but this year it hasn't been scrutinized like it has other years. For people that don't know, the MetLife turf, basically around the NFL, it's been lauded as having one of the worst surfaces in the league. I don't know if they made it better or not. I feel like it's something that hasn't been talked about. And the teams have been so bad for the Giants and Jets that it hasn't been the reason they've been losing. I'll go 33-9. I think you will see Flacco at some point. I could see them pull Anthony Richardson out of the game. I think you can see Trey Sermon get a touchdown in this game. Tyler Goodson perhaps get a touchdown in this game. And I may even go out on a limb. I don't know how many snaps he's going to play. I think you could even see A.D. Mitchell maybe get a touchdown in this game. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Does sound like Alec Pierce will be back. Mitchell played a ton. If you look at last week's snap count without Alec Pierce, it sounds like Pierce will be back in lineup. But I do want to get to Corbin's pick here in just a second. One thing I will add, Richardson to me in these final 3 games, Andy, I said, I don't know if the Colts are going to win out because I think he'll turn it over twice in 2 of these 3 games. Shane Steichen didn't let him turn it over a second time last week. Again, whether Shane wants to admit it or not, and obviously you ran it great, you didn't want Richardson throwing it after that interception. He threw it 5 times in the final 49 minutes of the game. I think the weather could be used again as like, right. We don't want Richardson throwing it.
What's the over-under on Anthony Richardson, not completions, but attempts?
Gosh, that's a great, 15.5?
Yeah.
Something like that. I mean, so that, I think is something to keep an eye on. I think the only way this is somehow a game is if, you let Richardson potentially turn it over. Corbin Lingenfelter, what do you got? Colts, Giants, 7.5-point favorites.
I had 13-3 Colts, but then you brought up the Colts have not beaten a team by 2 scores this season, so I'm going 13-10, solely because of what happened last week with Tennessee, where they were up big, and then late in the game, they almost squandered an easy victory.
God, 13-10 sounds like a miserable viewing experience.
Yeah, but KB 13-10 would be horrific for the Colts.
Do you think the Colts are playing for their playoff hopes Sunday? Or do you think we get Chargers and Broncos getting the win tomorrow. Again, Chargers at Patriots at 1 o'clock.
I think the Chargers win.
Okay.
So that takes away that. I actually think the Bengals win. And
so you think Bengals beat Broncos at 4:30. That's in Cincy.
So what's it going to set up? It's going to set up the Colts are going to have to be relying on Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
In Week 18.
We'll explain on the other side, but right now, as long as the Colts get some help tomorrow, they will need either Carson Wentz or Aiden O'Connell to win a football game in Week 18 for them.
It's a great thing to say. A lot of local connections for that one.
A lot of local ties.
So, again, 33-9, that's me. 27-9, that's KB. 13-10, Corbin. I like Corbin.
Corbin's been good this year.
Hey, listen, he's got a curveball. Makes me think that the game's going to be 17-10 now.
Tim Wakefield knuckleball from Corbin.
Yes, he does.
Corbin, sorry.
The Colts, you mentioned it. How can they get into the playoffs? We'll talk about it next year on The Fan on a Friday.
All right, this time last week, Matt Taylor was telling me that he was hoping that car would go off the road. He's going to join us here in about 10 minutes. We'll see if he has any apologies for me on that end. Just to put a bow tie on our Colts playoff talk from last segment, Andy, you said that you expect Chargers to beat Patriots.
Yeah,
coming up tomorrow. Okay, so
do.
that would eliminate one scenario. Again, you need the Chargers to lose out.
Even though I don't know who the Chargers running back's going to be. Gus Edwards is out, and Dobbins is very questionable. So we'll see.
Might be Harbaugh after his explanation of how blood flows through the body yesterday. So the Chargers, again, they've got Patriots and Raiders, so you need them to lose both. So let's say that happens.
Okay.
Chargers win. Okay, that's gone. You've got Bengals beating Broncos. So that if that scenario does indeed happen tomorrow, that game's at 4:30, the Colts would be playing to keep their playoff hopes alive at 1 o'clock Sunday. Okay? Assume the Colts beat the Giants. That means in Week 18, Andy, you would need this. You would need the Raiders to beat Denver.
Right.
Is that Aiden O'Connell time?
You would need O'Connell's injured, right?
Is it Desmond Ridder?
I believe so. Let me check the last game, but I believe that's the case. Yeah.
Man, I think Desmond Ridder's horrible.
He is pretty bad.
Boy,
that's not good. You'd rather have Aiden O'Connell.
Not that I'm carrying Aiden O'Connell off the field, but I mean that would seemingly be better. Okay, while you check that, you would also need a couple other things. You would need either.
No, it was O'Connell. Remember, he went out and everyone thought he was done for the season. Then, the injury's not as bad as we thought.
Okay, so it'd be Aiden O'Connell?
So, Aiden O'Connell was 24 of 38 for 257. How about that? Good for him.
Okay, so you would need Aiden O'Connell there to beat, is it Raiders Broncos or is it Chiefs Broncos? Now I'm starting to go in my head here.
Okay, so the final game of the season will be Chargers, Raiders. It will be,
that's right.
It will be at the Raiders.
Okay. So
it'll be in Vegas.
You need Carson Wentz and the Chiefs to beat the Broncos. That's
it.
The first order of business. You would then need either Cincinnati or Miami to win out. You need multiple teams at 9-8. All these teams would be tied. Then you would get on conference record. That means you would need Pittsburgh to lose to Cincinnati. Will Pittsburgh be playing for anything in Week 18? They've already clinched the playoff spot. Is the AFC North still up for grabs?
It's a good
I think
question.
It is still up for grabs.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Pittsburgh, if I'm them, they probably play that game straight up because they've been so bad lately. Don't you think?
Right, they've lost 3 in a row.
Yeah, Pittsburgh wants to
so
probably
that would not
prove
be good
something.
for the Colts.
It would not. And obviously, the Chiefs wrapping things up on Christmas Day was bad for Indy as well.
Right. So you would either need Cincinnati to take care of business against the Steelers and or Miami to sweep their final two. Their final two is at Cleveland and at the Jets.
Right, yeah.
On paper,
they could
2 very winnable games.
Sure.
It's also Tua in cold, inclement, rainy weather.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers won't be playing in that game. I'm blanking on who the backup is, but the backup for the Jets, I would imagine, would play Week 18.
Is it Tyrod Taylor?
I believe it is. Of course, Taylor might actually be better. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers, whatever. I don't know. He's played better the last month. We shall see. I had a buddy who asked me this yesterday because obviously he knows I'm following the Colts here. He's a Giants fan as well. He is still alive in an Eliminator league. KB, still.
Wow, he's made it 16 straight weeks.
And this guy is a terrible sports gambler. A terrible sports gambler. He's one of these guys that tried to do picks and eventually sell them and have a podcast and do all this stuff, and it just failed horribly. I mean, he'd have weekends, KB, he'd be 2-8. He would just have these terrible weekends, okay? So he's a terrible. I'm like, how are you still alive this late in the season? I mean, Eliminators, people were done week 1, 2, and 3.
I need to see a list of all 16 of them.
I do too. He's got 2 teams left. He's got the Colts, and he's got the Bucks.
Oh, he's got to go Colts, right?
And the Bucks played the Panthers. And I'm like, the Panthers are pesky, man.
Ooh, yeah.
The Panthers, now, the flip side would be...
Now, the Bucks are still playing for the NFC South.
They are. And I don't know who the Bucks play. Let me look it up Week 18.
Got to be some divisional game, right?
It's going to be. They play the Saints. So, the thing is, could you get the Bucks to beat the Panthers, and then you can play the Colts Week 18 against what
That's a decent setup.
I told him to go with the Colts, but he's worried about, Anthony Richardson. He hates Joe Flacco. I'm like, why do you hate Joe Flacco for some reason? He's really anti-Flacco. And I'm like, Anthony Richardson might complete 9 passes on Sunday.
Well, Flacco might complete 9, but a lot to the other team.
They might be a couple pick sixes going back the other way. So I told him to go with the Colts. That's what I told him. I said, you had it 27-9. I had it 33-9. So we shall see.
But he could be sweating it out if it's all of a sudden with Corbin. 13-10
I can imagine us walking in here, waddling in, tired on a Monday after a weekend, and the Colts went 13-10. A 48-yard field goal as time expires from Matt Gay to get the win.
In the pouring down rain in MetLife.
And we have to do the thing, a win is a win, and it's tough to, all the Steichen sound is, it's tough to get a W in the NFL. Anytime you can get one, you never apologize. Like, okay.
It will be interesting if the Colts are alive for the playoffs coming up on Monday. We should do the poll again. Now that they would be on the doorstep of 9-8, they would obviously still need help.
Right.
But still, now that they seemingly have, 1-2 games in a row.
But it would be doable help. If you told me Carson Wentz and the Chiefs came to play against the Broncos and that was a game into the fourth quarter, that would not surprise me.
Right. But again, you still, in all likelihood, need multiple games of help. But, how much would the difference be? Again, we did it last week, 90 to 10%, missed the playoffs. How closer would it be to 50-50?
You know what? To me, if I'm a Colts fan, you're used to being teased, though, aren't you? A little bit.
Oh yeah,
the last couple of years, you're used to that happening.
You're expecting it to go down to the final drive of the Jacksonville game, and Mac Jones goes 80 yards on you.
He finds Brian Thomas. Is Brian Thomas still healthy? Is he still out there catching touchdowns? So we shall see. Did you happen to hear Jameis Winston sound yesterday?
I saw the headline, but I did not click on it.
Okay, so you are much more pro Jameis Winston than I.
Oh yeah, I'm like, give me all the sound.
So you're fine with anything.
But he's currently benched, right?
He is. So I don't know. This sound wasn't even in the locker room. Yeah, he got benched again. It's happened a couple times.
They got the dude with 6 names starting.
Dorian Thompson. What's his name?
Robinson.
Is that what it is?
And I always screw it up. I usually say Robinson before Thompson.
What's his actual name? Dorian Thompson Robinson.
Yes.
He was UCLA, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so he's back being the starter. I don't know where this was taken, but Jameis cut a promo. I don't know if he's trying to get a commercial for Popeye's Chicken. So this is our sound of the day here on a Football Friday.
It's the sound of the day. Here we go. Welcome on the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
All right, go ahead and play it, Corbin. Let's take a listen.
O-P-E-Y-E-S. That's 7 letters. 7 letters, and one represents an excellent, delicious wing flavor. Popeyes is the official wing of watching football. Let's eat one. Let's eat some wings. Together.
There you go. It's like a live read.
It sounds like he's in a bathroom.
He's not in the bathroom. I think he's in the kitchen.
Now, again, the Colts, it doesn't look like they'll need Jameis, but they'll need Dorian Thompson Robinson. I almost just screwed it up because that involves some of their wild parlay here. They need Miami to beat Cleveland, so they need those teams to be bad. They need the guy that is starting over Popeyes, Jameis Winston, to be bad on Sunday.
How do we make the game on Sunday if the game fun on Sunday next Sunday against Jacksonville if the Colts are out of it? We're going to have to do this segment. Do you want to lose so you might get 1 or 2 better spots in the NFL draft? We're going to have to do that on Tuesday, KB. It's going to be contractually obligated that we do that.
It's a bigger rant for next week or, certainly for the offseason. But I just beg the Colts not to be so damn complacent and not to accept mediocre like they have for so many years. I'm just begging them.
Listen, I'm with you. You got to do something.
It's a throwaway line at the end of the 8 o'clock hour. And again, it's a bigger conversation that, frankly, I don't have the energy for today on this Friday. And the Colts are still in it. So I don't know if necessarily it kind of meets the moment. But if they are eliminated, dear Lord, just look at the top 3 teams in the AFC. And again, it's a bigger rant. Those 3 franchises, they all were good franchises. And then they said, no, we want to be great. So let's go make big trades. Let's go get trade up for Mahomes. Let's trade up for Josh Allen. Let's trade up for Lamar Jackson, and look how they've reaped it.
Yeah, but look at the teams at the end. It's teams like the Broncos that have rebuilt much quicker than you now, and they're
kind of
in the
double whammy.
playoffs. And Harbaugh goes to the Chargers, and they go from being a laughingstock to a playoff team. So yeah, we'll have lots of time to do that next week. Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, he joins us next 9:00 hour here on a Football Friday.
All right, final hour on what I think is kind of a fake week, honestly, for a lot of people. Not a fake week for our next guest, though. He is off to New York for the second time this season, probably more like New Jersey. He is the voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, and he's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Matt Taylor, the one gift that now you've seen your kids play with it for the last 24 hours, you immediately regretted getting for them.
Oh, man. Well, my little guy is really into Hot Wheels right now, and so we got him a racetrack set up. My grandparents or my parents got him a racetrack set up. My in-laws got him a racetrack set up. So we made the mistake of Christmas evening getting everything out all at the same time, and so now we have like a merging of parts. like, is this purple part to the first track, or is this red part to the third?
Mm-hmm.
Like
you got the Milwaukee Mile and Mid Ohio combined together right now.
We have a collage of like Grand Prix Hot Wheels tracks set up all over the house. So we're like looking at the picture. We're like, I think this red one is supposed to go over here, and this angle piece, this jagged one, like it's a mess right now. So. We made the mistake of letting him get it all out all at the same time, and we're like, oh God, we fumbled Christmas. So unfortunately, we're trying to
that sounds like hell.
Dig ourselves out of the hole.
Well, KB, you have two, right? Because Max got the motorcycle.
Yeah, Max did get the motorcycle, which I'm okay with the motorcycle. It's a little loud for my liking, but the damn microphone and the mini speaker that Rosie has, mean, gosh. And, kids with that, they don't realize, put the microphone further away from your mouth. And, she's too close to the speaker at times. And luckily, I say luckily, and I shouldn't say that because he's 2 years old, but, Max is the one that hates it more than anything.
Really?
He hates the loud noises.
Sure he does.
And just the randomness of it. Rosie thinks she sounds like Taylor Swift. So that's one that I'd love to eject.
Kevin, are you to the point where your kids have toys that just go off randomly, make noises randomly? Like you'll be turning off the lights to go to bed at night, and you'll be walking up the stairs, and then you just hear a doll giggle in the background.
Right.
It's it's terrifying.
Or I just step on so many toys. I feel like I feel like it's a modern day Toy Story.
Have you guys ever heard of the Linkables before? So it's like a stuffed animal toy, and they're all these different. One's like a turtle, and they're different animals, but you can link them all together, and the more you buy, they'll all sing a song. And so those will randomly go off, and we'll have six linkables that will be in the other room.
Rip my eardrum out before you even think about it.
We'll sing their song about being, kind and nice and being a friend and all those sorts of things. So
that's like the plot of a horror movie.
Oh yeah,
literally.
Oh yeah.
Imagine watching that on the plane ride out to out to MetLife this week, and he has voiced
the return of the Linkables, Part 4.
I was gonna say,
holy crap!
Sounds like an ESPN film is what it sounds like to me. Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, with us here, Payless Stickers Hotline. Matt, I'll start here. It's obviously going to be a newsy Friday, depending on where things stand with Anthony Richardson here in a couple hours. We asked Greg Rakestraw this last hour. Do you remember a play that I guess there's two different injuries, so maybe it's just natural wear and tear during the season, but do you remember a play or a moment in that Titans game where you thought he might have got banged up?
No, and that's the problem. He talked to the media normally, or I should say earlier than normal this week, because the Christmas broke everything up. So Tuesday was kind of like a Wednesday. Yesterday was kind of like a Wednesday, too, in terms of practice and prep, just because everything's thrown off with the holiday right in the middle of the week. So he actually talked on Tuesday instead of Wednesday, and spoke before any injury designation came out, and no one thought to even ask him about an injury because they didn't know of one, because he played that entire game, right? To your point, there wasn't a game, or it wasn't a play against Tennessee where you can point to where he came out early or maybe walked off a little bit slow. Played the entire game, had that huge 3rd and 8 conversion towards the end, so there was nothing really to point to. So I think but he did say on Tuesday that, running the football more, playing at the level that he's playing at now in the National Football League, he's feeling the wear and tear a little bit more and waking up a little bit more sore in the NFL than he did in college running the football. So I think it's more of the residual. I think it's more of things just compounding over the course of the last 5 games. And we should also mention, too, that playing in these last 5 games and finishing the last 5 games since coming back from the benching, it's the longest stretch of his career in terms of staying healthy. So that part is so important when you talk about his growth and maturity and development, not only for himself but for this team in the final 2 games. You want to see him come back and play for those reasons, but also, too, you're trying to continue to win and keep your playoff hopes alive. So there was nothing you can point to, but I just think it's the life of a quarterback that runs the football in the NFL as much as he does.
Mate, do you have a strong take on any of this? We've talked a lot today. It's good for AR to experience adversity, not being 100% and playing. It's also, I don't know if, on Saturday they could officially be eliminated from the playoffs. It also matters that he has a healthy offseason. He didn't have one last year. He needs to have one this year in his growth and maturation as a quarterback. So whether it be Sunday or these last two games, as he is obviously banged up and missing practice, do you have a strong take? Should he be out there? Should he not be out there? Do the playoffs matter? What happens on Saturday, the offseason? I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but that's been the conversation thus far this morning.
Yeah, I think that Anthony Richardson has got to soak up every ounce of experience, whether that's being banged up and not being able to play in practice and soaking up the mental side of things. If he is good enough to play, then I think he absolutely should play. Making the playoffs absolutely does matter in terms of experience and growth and being part of those big games and those big atmospheres. That's the next step for him to experience that and hopefully play well, but learn from any lessons that don't go well, so on and so forth. But I think going forward now, this offseason, to your point, Andy, like you said, he really wasn't able to start throwing the football until middle of February. But even in that, he's not, throwing routes to his teammates. That's more rehab throws than anything else for him this time last year. I should say February of 2024. So I think this whole offseason for him is hopefully a healthy one from the get-go as soon as the season ends, whenever that is. And it's got to be all about football for Anthony Richardson. It's got to be about better decision-making, obviously trying to improve that accuracy, and just working on the intangibles that come with being a franchise quarterback in the NFL. It's a huge offseason for him in that regard.
He is the voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, again Sunday at 1 o'clock, the final road game of the year. It is MetLife, where the Colts have won more games this season than the Giants. The University of Notre Dame have won more games than the Giants in that stadium this season. Let's do a little Taylor tidbits here on a Friday.
By the way, Kevin, tip of the cap, man. Notre Dame got it done last week. How much fun did you have, and what time did you get home? I need all the details in terms of how you soaked up that win.
We had a blast. We got the covers. I was under the covers at 2:11, if I remember correctly. 2:11 a.m. We left after the Riley Leonard touchdown. My car was heavy IU flavor. I've never seen so many sad and wet human beings walking out of a stadium in all my life. So, we left after the Leonard touchdown, 27-3, and then under the covers by about 2:11, and I was very happy.
That's pretty good. Well,
sorry
done
to your
there.
Hoosiers, but thank you for the just the gentleman comments here a week later.
Absolutely. That's what we do. We keep it on the up and up. Speaking of the up and up, all right, this is class, nothing but class, because Daniel Jones, he may not be with the Giants any longer, but he treated his former offensive line to nice holiday gifts. This is tidbit number one.
Wow, I didn't see this. This is great,
yeah,
Andy.
He did, yeah.
That's the classiest thing the Giants have done in years.
He's got enough money, yeah. Of course, I don't know if of course, they're kind of a crappy offensive line, but that's a different story. Go ahead, Matt.
So Daniel Jones sent all of the offensive linemen who were on the Giants roster with him a limited edition bottle. And you guys are going to have to help me here. Make sure I get this pronounced correctly. This is going to show my redneck alcohol consumption here. But he sent them a limited edition bottle of Clase Azul. Is that like a fancy type of tequila? I understand it as Clase Azul.
I don't know if you're saying it right, but I think that is, yeah. Probably,
blue, right? Blue?
Yeah, probably super pricey. I mean, I would imagine several $100s.
You weren't drinking that at Franklin back in the day, Matt?
Yeah, I was going to Vandermeer Spirits on Morton Street, and a nice bottle of a $1,200
Busch Light and your finest tequila here to get us through the weekend.
So, no, I mean, it was really cool. He was benched and released by the Giants last month. Now he's with the Vikings, currently on the practice squad in Minnesota. So I think this is pretty cool. Like, he's no longer with that team anymore, but he's still giving back. And it makes me wonder, KB, I mean, you and I used to work together. I didn't see anything from you in my stocking.
Oh, come on now.
Not even a Starbucks gift card or a.
Well, after you wished that I drove off the road last Friday, I thought, honestly, you would be delivering the gift to me more than me delivering the gift to you.
I'm telling you what, man, not even like a heart emoji on Twitter. I mean, you can learn something from this guy, man. Take some notes.
Now,
on
I'm
Mr.
looking
Daniel
online
Jones.
here. These bottles, I mean, obviously, I would never spend this much money on liquor, but, like, It's $160.
Okay, see, I don't know if it's that one. There is one
Right here at Total Wine and Kagan Bottle, and
well, there is one I'm seeing here that might be it, and it's $1,700.
Oh, geez.
So
that's
that-
a different animal.
That's more in the neighborhood of what Daniel Jones is spending.
I'm guessing.
Well, I like
that's
the blue
it.
and white bottle that I'm seeing here. What the hell are you seeing? Is it 10 times the size?
No,
or is
this
it just fancy?
This is the Ultra one. I don't know if that has more alcohol content or is tougher to find or not. Yeah, I'm seeing 3 or 4 different ones. I mean, I'm even seeing one for like $600-700. I would have to imagine, and Matt, I know you've been around the NFL too. If you're going to gift, the gift's got to be over $1,000 that you're giving to the offensive line. I mean, some of these guys are given golf carts and 4 or 5 different presents. I mean, some of these are $10,000. They're giving $5,000-10,000 to an offensive lineman.
Well, I mean, Brock Purdy is gifting cars. I mean, so we start there. I mean, good golly. I mean, limit. I'm going. It's probably got to be like the high end of the high end here, like the upper quartile of Class A Azul. If we're being serious here, because it's a limited edition bottle, so they probably made like 20, and Daniel Jones bought them all for the offensive lineman.
Boy, nothing says the Giants stink like Matt Taylor leading off his tidbits with Daniel Jones's Christmas presents.
He didn't have a tidbit on the linebacker core or Malik Neighbors or anything else.
I got 2 more, so let's get into let's talk some football here, all right? If you guys want to talk about the Giants, how about Malik Neighbors, because he's kind of the bright spot of their offense. 6th overall pick out of LSU, biggest threat they've got on that side of the football. In fact, this year he ranks 1st in the NFL on targets, 154 targets. He's 5th in catches, ranks 7th in yards per game at 74.5, despite missing 2 games due to a concussion. This year he's already established the Giants' rookie record for catches in a season, and he's 3 catches and 31 yards away from becoming the 5th rookie in NFL history with 100 catches and 1,000 receiving yards. Can you guys take a stab at some of the other ones? One of them's already done it so far this year. And he plays with the Raiders.
Bowers?
Brock Bowers has already done it. You had one fella do it last year. That's Puka Nacua. The other is Jalen Waddle in 2021. Then you have to go back to 2003 with Anquan Bolden as rookies all time in NFL history with 100 catches and 1,000 receiving yards right out of the gate. So again, as Rick Venturi likes to say, he's the only ambient player. Neighbors is the only ambient guy the Giants have on that side of the ball that's going to keep you up at night on a bad offense.
Did you say he leads the NFL in targets despite missing 2 games?
Yeah, it's over 150. I mean, he's the only guy that gets targeted. The frustrating thing is
he's yet to practice this week. That's why I bring that up.
The frustrating thing has been everything. They just cannot complete a pass down the field. So I mean, his per reception is much different than like Alec Pierce. His per reception might be 8, 9, 10. It's not it's not 17 like some of the better wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, and they're force feeding him. I mean, if you watch their games, and Andy, I know that you do. It's like you said. It's get the ball to him in as many ways as possible. It's down the field. It's in the middle of the field. It's also gadget as well, because he's their best player, yards after catch, all of that stuff. So they are force feeding him in terms of targets, catches, because he's their biggest playmaker they have on that team. All right, last tidbit that I have, and this is going to complement what the Colts did last week against the Tennessee Titans, rushing for 335 yards, a new franchise record. The old record was set, fellas, back in 1956 when the Colts ran for 318 yards in a game. That was in the infancy of the Baltimore Colts. So when you break a record, guys, that stood for 68 years, I think we got to talk about it, all right? So notable occurrences in 1956. You had the first televised broadcast of The Wizard of Oz in 1956. So I'm guessing that had to have been in color, right? I mean, it had to have been in color because it starts off black and white. When did color TV start? I mean, it's got to be it has to incorporate that first broadcast of
we're getting a hell of a history lesson here with Matt Taylor.
It wouldn't be nearly as popular.
I'm seeing 1954 if the internet's telling me the truth.
Perfect.
January 1954.
Whoa, this happened in Bloomington, Indiana. RCA manufactured the first color television set, the CT100, in Bloomington, Indiana. You guys want to guess how much the 12-inch screen cost?
$47.
I was going to say $13.
No, it sounds like you buying liquor for your Franklin teammates. No. This is more in the Daniel Jones range. Cost $1,000 in 1954.
Wow. Inflation
How about
is
Bloomington?
killing us.
Called the Merrill. This is great. Oh,
Hell
it's at
yeah.
the Children's Museum? I'm sure I've probably seen this before.
All right, so you had The Wizard of Oz make its TV debut in 1956. You also had that year the Federal Aid Highway Act was passed. So Congress passed a bill to fund the construction of the interstate highway system. So I think that's right on par. It's really significant because that's how long 465 has been under construction. I think they just finished up the northwest side.
That's the most South Side comment you've ever said.
100%, right? So that first orange barrel on 465 was first spotted in 1956. People
3
were stuck in
generations of
traffic.
Taylors later, and it's still
That's
there.
it. Yeah, people were stuck in traffic around the airport in their Mercury Montclairs. They were listening to Elvis emerge as the world's first rock star with that huge hit with Heartbreak Hotel in 1956. Plus, the Colts were rushing for over 300 yards in a game.
Look at that.
Year.
Alan Amici and Lenny Moore in the open field, and that's what was happening.
Hey, that's where we are in the holiday edition of Taylor Tidbits, fellas. Take it or leave it.
Excellent from Matt Taylor there. Are you is it the same hotel, or is there anything we're looking forward to? 2 trips to New York in 2 months, or is it, hey, I'm away from the kids, I'll just sleep?
A little bit of both. I'm not sure if we are staying in the same hotel or not. I think it depends on logistics and availability, so I'm not sure about those things. I really haven't seen the itinerary, but I always like going to New York because there's so much culture packed in to such a short or a small area, as you guys know. So, I think this go around, I'm going to try and find me a nice little Italian New York hole-in-the-wall spot, get a nice little pasta dish, and
that sounds great.
Kind of celebrate the New Year a couple days early if I can.
That sounds great. I've got the Puccini's jingle stuck in my head now that Matt Taylor just said that.
And I'm not going to Olive Garden in New Jersey, by the way.
Hey, don't be knocking on that. It sounds like a hell of a meal here on a Friday night for the Bowens. Matt Taylor, Merry Christmas, sir. Hope you and the kids had a great one and a early Happy New Year to you. And looking forward to potentially one more, if not more, of these chats coming up on Friday.
Absolutely, fellas. Appreciate your time. Have a great rest of the week and the holiday season here, and always good to be with you.
I think Matt Taylor would be a great history teacher. He'd make it fun, throwing those little tidbits that he just delivered for us there.
I agree. I'm with you on that. Speaking of New York, so Kentucky basketball played in New York in the CBS Sports Classic. They played Ohio State. That was right around Christmas. It was right before Christmas. 2 different Kentucky players proposed to their girlfriend in New York. One was
Love is in the air.
One was on like a Thursday, and one was on a Friday. They did it on different days, but they did it on the same trip. Is that a yay or is that a nay?
Yeah.
You're kind of back to back with a teammate, though. I
might have got a discount on the ring, maybe an NIL thing.
Well, I'm sure they probably did.
Now,
I'm sure.
Jack Kaiser for Notre Dame, number 24, the linebacker from Pioneer High School here. He proposed to his girlfriend also in New York earlier this year, and they featured it on the Notre Dame Hard Knocks. Peacock did like a Notre Dame Hard Knocks.
Yeah, I remember. I didn't see any of it.
Now, I
got
thought
to be
this was
honest.
pretty well
Sorry.
done.
Okay.
Marcus Freeman took a couple of players out there for like a media day. Like
Right.
Notre Dame does their media day where they're not in a conference, but they just go to New York and they do the one-stop shop at, whatever, NBC and ESPN.
Right.
Obviously go over to ESPN and et cetera, et cetera. So I guess Jack Kaiser's girlfriend, when she found out that Notre Dame would be in New York City, she was pissed at Marcus Freeman for not bringing Jack, knowing the girlfriend lived there.
Okay.
Like, so, Freeman brought whatever,
Sure.
Riley Leonard and, Ben Morris in their corner, or Riley Mills, their defensive tackle, didn't bring the other captain.
Wow.
So she's upset with Coach Marcus Freeman, but little did she know that Marcus Freeman and Jack Kaiser had a little something up their sleeves. And boom, next thing you know, she's looking over the water, and there's Jack, and he's on a knee, and the rest is history.
Oh, goodness. How about that? Corbin, do you like those love stories? The college athlete getting the free ring?
Well, I don't know if it's a free ring. Let's not go there.
Listen, these guys at Kentucky basketball ain't paying for that ring. I tell you that right now. You like that? Love in the air?
Everybody's got their own love story, Andy.
Thank you to that.
It's up to you to write it.
Well said by Corbin.
I like that. That's
romance.
Great. It's a great answer.
In the air. All right, coming up in a few, we'll give our popcorn games. Again, we've got a busy NFL slate with 3 Saturday games, even though we've already had 3 this week. So we'll do that. Easiest and hardest game to pick. We will also have a Free Beer Friday here on the Pop Quiz coming up in a little bit. But Andy Sweeney, go ahead and lead off a morning checkdown.
The morning checkdown brought to you by Butler Bulldogs basketball. New Year's Day, the Dogs continue play with a 6:30 p.m. tip-off against Villanova at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
Yeah, I wanted to, let's lead off a little bit different here on this check down. We've done a lot of Pacers today. Obviously, the Pacers losers last night, 120, 114. We'll dive into that, but we did have an open, I won't say an open locker room, a couple different players meeting with the media yesterday on the Colts wise, DeForest Buckner and Jonathan Taylor. We've laid out really all week, including today, what needs to happen for the Colts to stay in contention to Week 18 for the playoffs. Will they be scoreboard watching? DeForest Buckner was asked that yesterday.
For me personally, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. I just know we gotta handle our own business. You know what I mean? And at the end of the year, or after these 2 weeks, however it shakes out, it shakes out. You know what I mean? We get some help and we get in, great. If we don't, that's on us. It's shame on us.
It's Colts Giants, still the spread, 7.5 kickoff, 1 o'clock our coverage here on the Fan beginning at 10 a.m.
Should I use that line, shame on us, shame on you? Next time Max Bowen screws up, should I go with the shame on you?
You're going to go with the shame?
That's not a very millennial parenting line.
I like what he's saying there, though. Shame on us.
No, spot on.
It's a great...
I was nodding my head.
I was wondering how he was going to land the plane when I was listening
very
to
well
that
done.
conversation. That's the way you do it if you're D-Buck.
Shout out to DeForest Buckner on that. Again, coming up, it is a Fox game, and again, our telecast will begin, or I should say our broadcast will begin at 10 a.m. here with Colts and Giants from MetLife. All right, as Andy said, Pacers lose last night to the Thunder. I think what's disappointing about that is you're up 4 late, and your star had looked like anything but that. Tyrese Halliburton, 4 points in the entire game, but then the Thunder made all the plays down the stretch, outscoring the Pacers 17-7 to end it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 45 points, 15 of 22 shooting, and 1 turnover for him.
Dude is so good.
You see dudes put up 40 in a game, but usually they take 30-some shots, or there's a bunch of turnovers in there. Not at all with him. That was a guy that, is certainly an All-NBA first-teamer and an MVP type of candidate. So now the Pacers off to Boston tonight. Sounds like Obi Toppin very iffy for that one. For those that missed it last night, guys were slipping and falling a ton on that alternate court. Don't know if that had something to do with it. Toppin tried to come back in the game, didn't look like his normal self. So sounds like he'll be out based off Rick Carlisle's comments post-game there. The Pacers are an 11.5-point underdog
That's
here
a
on
lot
this
of points.
back-to-back. That is 7:30 tonight with our coverage beginning at 7.
I thought Jarris Walker played pretty well. Obviously, he had the big dunk on Gilgeous-Alexander. I thought
he was kind of takeover mode there for a few minutes.
Yeah, I thought he was actually pretty good. After the game, Rick Carlisle even praised him that I thought he was that I thought he played well. The thing, I know we got to move on. Gilgeous-Alexander, he had 11 free throws. He was 11 for 11. That is something that I want to see Halliburton be better at.
Oh, he's never been a big foul line guy.
Is get to the line at least a little bit more, right?
Well, and
didn't get to the free throw line at all yesterday.
The thing I mentioned to you earlier in the show is, they oftentimes leave Halliburton in at that second unit. That is your opportunity to be really assertive. I get when Nembhard's having a good night offensively in the starting lineup.
Sure.
Mathurin had a really good first half. Siakam, I thought, started the game off very hot. I understand when those guys are doing it, but when you're in there with that second unit, that's when you need to be more of a catalyst, and incredibly quiet. His 7th single-digit game of the season for him.
NFL last night, Thursday Night Football was disgusting. 6-3 Seattle over the Bears. Seattle now 9-7. The Bears have lost, 10 straight games. At one point, they were going to be 5-2. They allowed the Hail Mary to the Commanders, and everything has changed since then. So there's really no stats in this game. Geno Smith threw for 160 yards. If you had anyone fantasy football-wise in your fantasy football finals, you were screwed. By the way, you're not in the finals of any of your fantasy leagues, I assume?
No, I'm in the one of, I think it might be my podcast league that I'm in.
Okay.
And for some reason, and yeah, I love Eddie Garrison to death.
Oh, boy.
But Eddie did multi-week playoff games, including Week 18.
Oh, Eddie. You can't do Week 18.
That's a no-no, right?
No, that's a no-no. However you set
That's
up...
a fantasy sacrilegious no-no.
It's
disgusting.
love Eddie.
Love him. But you can't do that.
No,
Shame on you, Eddie Garrison.
You can't do it. I mean, you could have the Eagles and obviously the Chiefs, and there's several teams that could
Starting
sit guys.
Carson Wentz in Week 18.
Kareem Hunt and Carson Wentz carrying you to the finals.
Can you imagine? Unbelievable. All right, college basketball rundown. We will get the final non-conference games for Indiana and Purdue coming up on Saturday. It's Winthrop for Indiana. I'll never forget when Notre Dame lost to Winthrop in the tournament one year. I'm trying to think who was their coach. He went on to bigger and better things. That's 4 o'clock from Bloomington, Toledo. The Rockets visiting West Lafayette. That will be a little bit later. And speaking of Purdue, Jaden Ivey and Zach Edey, quite the nights last night. Jaden Ivey with a 4-point game winner in Sacramento. They came back from 19 down to win that one. And Zach Edey with 21 and 16.
Was it Greg Marshall?
For him. Yes, great call. Greg Marshall.
I was going to say, it went Greg Marshall, Randy Peel, then Pat Kelsey.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was Kelsey.
We were, I think it was with Herringody maybe. Yeah. That was a bad loss. Gosh, I hated that.
Where'd he go? He went overseas and dominated, didn't he?
Oh,
Probably
Herringody
for 7, 8
he had
years.
some cups of coffee in the NBA.
He did. He's a good player. He's a very good player.
All my passwords are literally Herringody. And
so you know how to break into all of KB
If you want to break into anything, just guess Herringody.
Herringody 1, 2, 3! Exclamation mark.
Gosh, I love him.
Let's take a break. Reminder, Freebie Friday coming up in about 20 minutes or so. But on the other end, our easiest game to pick, hardest game to pick, and the popcorn game. We'll talk some NFL. We'll do it next on a Football Friday.
All right, we'll give our popcorn hardest, easiest games here to pick in week 17. Just a couple of loose ends that I know it's kind of the news cycle of where college football is at right now. Again, we will get one game coming up on New Year's Eve, Penn State and Boise. Then we'll have the 3 other quarterfinal games all on New Year's Day. Texas, Arizona State will lead us off. We'll get the Rose Bowl of Oregon, Ohio State, then Notre Dame, Georgia late on New Year's Day night. I keep on seeing the portal news items, Andy, and so far you have had the Purdue Boilermakers with their most embarrassing season in program history send dudes to Ohio State,
I know,
Oregon,
I know,
Clemson,
I know,
and Texas.
Yeah, there was at least a little bit of talent. Maybe you shouldn't have been a one-win football team. Yeah,
I mean, unbelievable.
It's not good. It makes the Ryan Walters hire look even more horrific, quite frankly.
And I mean,
it does.
Notre Dame's a little bit of an outlier in the portal. Like, for the most part, they're 5 to 6 guys. And really, if they're going to make a portal addition, it's probably going to be a frontline guy. Are these dudes going there to be backups?
Well, the guy, the offensive lineman, I'm blanking on his name, went to Louisville. He's going to play. He's going to start. No, I mean, the answer would be, yeah, will they have to fight for their playing time a little bit more than at Purdue? Probably, but I don't know. If your kid going to Clemson or something like that, I'm expecting you go in there and have a great shot to play.
Clemson doesn't do the portal. Will Helt is who the defensive end.
They've done it this year. They've got 2 players
going
out of the
to
portal
Clemson
this year. Dabo Sweeney broke down and got a couple players. Good for him.
Again, a lot of local guys. Dylan Thieneman from Westfield going to Oregon. Cole Brevard from Carmel going to Texas there. And Max Clare was the last one to Ohio State.
Are you surprised any of those guys that Odom couldn't keep one of them?
So that's been something that I feel like I don't, and maybe I'm just missing. It doesn't seem like Purdue is retaining anybody of note. And again, Indiana lost. Who they lose? They lost Jalen Lucas and
yeah. Taven Jackson put his name
in
there.
No, I mean from Allen to Signetti.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
he obviously overhauled a ton.
He did,
but remember the Donovan McCauley retention was thought to be a big one.
Right,
obviously
at the time.
That didn't play out how it did. And remember Purdue lost their 2 big guys after Walter's first year, a couple all Big Ten guys. So it seems like the Barry Odom cycle has been, we're just going to go out and get Arkansas, UNLV dudes, and really not going to retain much on that end at all.
I'll say this. There's a part of me that loves the portal. I think it's good for some players. I think some players get to see, and maybe these Purdue guys fit into the mold that they get to see things. Obviously, they're going to winning programs, so they get to do that, but they get to see things maybe a little bit through a different prism. I like that. I think this is the good part of the portal. I would say the negative part of the portal, and we're going to run into this with Purdue and Indiana, and it's not their fault. Most programs that they're, where they are doing this. Notre Dame, you could probably think of some guys, but you get the player that had the defensive end that had 9 sacks at Coastal Carolina, or for a small school. It's like, dude, I got no idea if this guy at Kent State that had 11 sacks is going to be good enough to play in the Big Ten or SEC. And it's like, it's almost easier for us to evaluate a 5-star or a 4-star coming out of high school because we can just attach the 4-star or 5-star to them, and we think that they're a good player. But, then there's a player that is moving up from, a lot of the JMU guys, right? Going to Indiana. A good question here. Todd texts us and goes, how many were Brom recruits? Some of those were, the offensive lineman that went to Louisville was a Brom recruit.
Well, I mean, not all of them are following Brom to Louisville. I mean, obviously that was just the one offensive lineman there. Yeah, maybe some of them are, but still, I would have thought you would probably tried and hoped to retain it. And who knows? Maybe these guys are enough's enough. And, obviously they're going to programs that have some pretty rich NIL backing when you look at it. So, maybe being a depth piece at Texas is better than being, even maybe a starter at Purdue. That's a question that obviously Barry Odom and that athletic department will have to answer. All right, let's do our Week 17 games. Andy, I'll begin. Hardest game to pick. I feel this way about a lot of Week 17.
Okay.
You got to watch the weather. Some of these rainy games.
Yeah, okay.
Watch the overs.
So where's it raining at? Let's go.
So I'm going to say a hard game for me to pick is Bills minus 9.5 against the Jets. The Bills can't play for the 1 seed anymore.
Correct.
Kansas City's wrapped that up. The Bills have won the AFC East. What are they playing for? I know they struggled last week with the Patriots. It's a divisional game. sloppy weather. Are you afraid of playing Josh Allen? He doesn't strike me as that. But
isn't that it? You're playing for Josh Allen to win the MVP.
Yeah, but that's a damn boy. Can you imagine all of a sudden if he were to get hurt? Bit. So I will go. You're saying to lock up the second seed? I mean, yeah, I get that, but like in the second or third seed, I get you would have a home game then. In that second round game, but still, I just don't. Points. It's not the one seed. Where you'd get the bye, obviously. So that's my hardest game to pick.
All right, mine's going to be Eagles-Cowboys, and I'll tell you why. I know CeeDee Lamb now has been put on the shelf for the season. The Eagles favored by 7 in this game. The over-under, KB, is one of the lowest we have. And by the way, have you noticed how the over-unders are really low this week? We have a 37.5, a bunch of 39s. The Colts are going to be at 40.5 when all is said and done on Sunday. Is it too many points, though? The Cowboys have won 4 out of 5 games. It's a rivalry game. The Cowboys the last couple weeks have learned how to run the football. And then the Eagles, if you're the Eagles, are you pushing? Can you get Jalen Hurts back? Jalen Hurts, concussion, very questionable. And Kenny Pickett is the next guy up there. And Kenny Pickett is obviously iffy. You may say, what are they fighting for? Are they fighting to get Saquon Barkley back in the NFL MVP discussion? He needs about, I think it was 268 yards to beat Eric Dickerson, something like that. So they do that. To me, that spread at 7, if I knew Jalen Hurts was going to play, it would be different. Again, the Cowboys have won 4 out of 5 games.
Easiest game for me, I like the Browns covering at home 6.5 against Miami. Again, that is not going to be a great weather game for Tua, and that is a big storyline with him. So you give me the Browns in 6.5. I get they're starting the dude with 4 names, but still, I'm going to go with them as my easiest game here of Week 17.
All right, so mine's going to be our game. It's going to be the Colts and Giants. I mean, listen, I love Corbin to death. He's been great the last couple days. If we walk in here and this game's 16-10 or 13-10 or 17-10,
he went 13-10.
I mean, dude, I cannot. That would be a horrific Colts conversation on Monday. That would feel. It wouldn't be a loss, so it wouldn't feel totally like a loss, but there would be a part of me that's like, the Giants are just being boat raced in a lot of these games. I mean, they let Michael Penix Jr. in his first chance to get in the game in the NFL, basically just play solid football and beat them. To me, if the Colts can't win this by 10 points, if they can't win by 2 touchdowns at least, some of your guys have kind of packed it in and getting ready for Cabo.
Speaking of Michael Penix Jr., that's where I'm going for my popcorn game. And I would not have said this at the start of the year, but Falcons Commanders, Sunday Night Football. First off, both these teams still playing for playoff situations.
Oh, sure.
2 rookie quarterbacks. I have not watched a ton of Jaden Daniels this year. And, of course, really haven't watched Michael Penix Jr. So I love that. Sunday Night Football, this is great. That's a great viewing game for me.
It's a big game.
I thought about Packers-Vikings.
Well, that's mine, yeah.
But I'm going to go with Falcons Commanders. I think it's a quality Sunday nighter.
Yeah, I think that's a good game, and I'm going to go with the 425 game that you mentioned, Packers-Vikings. The Vikings 13-2, but get this, they're only 1-point favorite at home, which tells you that Vegas and probably the public thinks that Green Bay goes on the road and they get a win. The Packers have won 5 out of 6. They've won 2 straight. And at some point, KB, and maybe they'll prove us, I don't know if they'll prove us right or wrong, it's just got to be the effect that people don't believe in Sam Darnold. But they have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They've won 8 straight games. Have the Minnesota Vikings, again, just favored by 1 measly point.
NFC North or the rest of the NFC to represent that conference in the Super Bowl? You either get the NFC North teams or you get the other 3 divisions.
I'm thinking my biggest problem is I'd take Green Bay. Sorry, Mark Dykton. I think Detroit is too injured, and I probably don't believe in Sam Darnold once we get to the postseason, and I think the Eagles are in the NFC Championship game. I think that much of Philly. So if you gave me the field, I'd probably, unfortunately, take the field. So to me, it'd be like, are you taking Green Bay or are you taking the field? I'll take the field.
I believe if the playoffs started today, would we get Packers at Rams?
We would get, hang on just a second, I have this.
I thought that was a potential.
No, I thought I had it.
Because I think it'd be Commanders and Falcons maybe, or Commanders and Bucks, one of those two. That is a juicy one. Packers at Rams. what we would get as a potentially opening round game.
I'm trying to find this, but I'm failing.
Corbin's nodding his head.
No, I'm failing. I had all this
Corbin?
set up.
Yeah.
Is that what it would be?
I like that. And again, we will get our final kick times for Week 18 coming up on Sunday. I'm not going to act like people are on the edge of their seat planning Colts-Jags next Sunday, but if you do have tickets to the home finale,
what time do you think that will be?
It's probably safe to say they won't be in the Saturday night time slot that they were in last year, correct?
If it's, I don't think so. Hey, if it's good
but
weather,
sometimes they do
go there
group,
and tailgate.
Sometimes they do group, like if the Colts are playing for something, they do group like the 4 o'clock games together. You can get the weird 4 o'clock games.
That's a good point.
In Week 18. So we'll get that time slot coming up on Sunday night.
All right, it's a Freebie Friday, 317-239-1070. Get in. It's a Freebie Friday. Pop quiz next on The Fan.
Well, before we get to the pop quiz, I'll be out at Colts practice 2 hours and, 6 minutes from now, walking outside to see whether or not Anthony Richardson will get his first work in of the weekend. Back and foot ailments. He has yet to practice this week. This would be the first time in his NFL career that he has missed practice time in a week and still played in a game. And we'll see exactly if he practices, how he recovers from it, and if that's enough to be out there on Sunday afternoon. So a little bit of a newsier Friday than we've had in a while.
You think they'll be inside or outside? It's supposed to rain. Scotty, is it already raining? It's supposed to be drizzling and raining just all day until like 5 o'clock. Just disgusting weather.
Yeah, that is a good
on.
point. Again, that sounds like what the weather's supposed to be like on Sunday in MetLife. So, that'll be something to keep an eye on here. Colts and Giants, Week 17. All right, give us a number here, 1 through 8. Freebie Friday, Jiffy Lube oil change no matter what on the pop quiz.
Let's go caller number 3 today on this Friday, Corbin. Caller number 3. Who do we got?
That would be Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Chris, what's up, man?
Chris, you getting scared?
You. Yeah. Hello.
Whoa.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Hello?
Bad connection. I'm sorry.
Chris, you alive?
Yeah, I had a bad connection. My
Okay.
phone almost cut out here.
We got worried. We were going to call 911 if you didn't answer there. So we appreciate you finally.
Good. I just got off work about an hour ago, and yeah, I'm alive.
Okay. Like Jonathan Taylor on the goal line. Chris is recovered here, and he is ready to go working the night shift here. Chris, great to hear your voice, and early Happy New Year to you. Andy Sweeney, go ahead and throw number 1 Chris's way.
All right, let's get a winner here on this Friday. Number 1, Chris. The Pacers fell to the Thunder last night at the Fieldhouse. Who led the Pacers in scoring last night? Was it Pascal Siakam, Andrew Nembhard, Miles Turner, Benedict Mathurin?
I think Nembhard.
We start there from Chris. Colts Giants, East Rutherford. That's coming up on Sunday. On yesterday's quiz, we noted that the Colts lead the all-time regular season series 10-8. Who leads between the two franchises in the postseason? Colts, Giants, they're tied, or they've never met?
I'd say they never met.
Chris, what year were you born, if you don't mind me asking?
74.
Okay, so you weren't alive for either of these matchups then.
So they're tied.
You sure?
It's not the Giants. Guess again.
I'll go with Colts.
There we go. Question number 5. There are 5 college football bowl games on today's schedule.
I had no idea.
God bless you on this one, Scotty. Name the only Big Ten team that's in action today in the bowl games. Rutgers, Nebraska, Washington, or USC?
I'll say Nebraska. I didn't see the schedule, but
it's okay.
By the way,
no one's seen these.
These bowl games have been tremendous.
We had a good one last night.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Oklahoma
games.
Navy at noon today?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, let's go. Oklahoma favored by 2 in the hook. Let's go.
Boy, Texas Tech, Arkansas, that's a lot of SEC and Big 12 red in that one. I like these. Syracuse, Washington State. Okay. Number 4 here. Name one of the 2 teams that played in the first 6 overtime college football game last night. It's a great blue-collar worker matchup here.
No, it wasn't Boise State.
Blue and gold, yeah. I guess you are right on that, Scotty, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't Boise State was.
No, not Boise State. Chris, you got another guess?
Brother, you got no answer on this one.
Very close to here. Purdue plays this team in basketball on Sunday.
I've been out of the loop a little bit.
They shoot things in the air. That's their nickname. They go really high. Buzz Lightyear rides on them.
Got no chance on this one. He's got no chance.
All right, move on to 5.
All right, number 5. On this day in 1964, this team won its last NFL championship to date. Is it the Detroit Lions, the Minnesota Vikings, the Cleveland Browns, the Buffalo Bills?
I'll say Lions.
Man, that Toledo-Pittsburgh. Did you watch some of the highlights of those 2-point conversions?
Oh, yeah. And people are having like, is this the way you want a game 10? It's like, who cares? It's Toledo and Pitt, man.
It is gimmicky as hell, but man, some of those two-point conversion plays are wild.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun stuff. By the way, I've dropped the ball on something. Oh, let's go over the answers quickly.
Nem already got right.
Yeah.
We eventually got to the Colts 2-0, winning in 58 and 59, and that's it, right?
Yeah, USC's the Big Ten team that's in action today. Toledo Pitt last night. And then the Cleveland Browns, 1964, the last time they won an NFL championship. Again, that was a don't overthink it. It's the Browns. That's, a stat that's used quite a bit with the Browns. I should have asked Matt Taylor, and Shane Steichen, I think, would give you a terrible answer. Is he talking today? I never can.
Steichen talking today.
He is.
Yep.
I mean, they're staying in Jersey. They going to see any drones or UFOs?
Oh boy.
What happens? What happens if Kenny Morris kept up all night because he's out watching the drones and UFOs? What if a UFO or drone gets close to Matt Taylor?
I think
in Jersey. What are we doing?
You would get about as awkward of an answer as I had to my prom date senior year of high school.
Oh man. Yes, yeah, Coach. I was wondering if you followed. What's your reaction?
So the drone's still lurking out there?
Oh yeah. Like, what's your reaction to staying in Jersey, which has been active the last couple weeks with drones and/or UFOs? What's your statement on that, Coach? Sure, that's exactly what Steichen wants to think.
I'd rather answer a question about who he voted for in the election.
Who on the team would give the best answer?
That's a good one. I don't know. You need somebody crazy. Grant Stewart.
EJ Speed?
EJ Speed for sure. That's a great one.
That's the guy
Definitely.
I was thinking. Who would give the best drone answer? Be EJ Speed.
Reminder, tonight it's a 7:30 tip. A little later for Pacers and Celtics. It is a back-to-back. Our coverage will begin 10 a.m. coming up on Sunday. Scotty, that's 6 o'clock Sunday, Pacers Celtics. Is that right?
Yeah, it's five. It's five. Yeah, our coverage at 5:30. And then reminder, tomorrow we're gonna have 3 bowl games. We'll have the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl of Boston College, Nebraska, the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is Iowa State, Miami, and that's always interesting. You've seen. I mean, they have like a real-life toaster now, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Where they throw Pop-Tarts in and they do that entire thing. And then the Alamo
now I'm hungry
Bowl.
For a Pop-Tart right now.
BYU, Colorado could be a fun game. I love Dion's like, there'll be no smoking weed in the hotel.
Every time I think of the Alamo Bowl, I think of Purdue against Drew Brees. Was it Drew Brees and Michael Bishop, Scotty?
Oh, Michael
Does that
Bishop
ring a bell?
was awesome.
I'm just picturing Tiller's mustache.
Oh, man. He was fantastic. Good week of shows. Merry Christmas to everyone. We're back at it Monday at 7 a.m. Have a good weekend right here on The Fan.